Here.
Councilman Carlisle.
Present.
NTR Morgan.
Here. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here on a non-council day. We've got some members present, some members join us online. And so the intent of today is just for informational purposes. We'll have presentations, questions back and forth. And then if there are any amendments that people want to make to the ARPA resolution that as proposed by the administration, let's hold those amendments until Council Tuesday when we're in person and voting. And let's just get the information for now. We can talk about them, we can think about them, but we're going to try to save all votes until Council Tuesday. Mr. Mayor, Chief Ford, the floor is y'all's to open up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm just going to be brief, and then I'm going to come back for one of the individual presentations. I want to make 2 points to touch on a concern from last time and a bigger point that I didn't make. If you look at the ARPA funding that we are proposing, which is my first point, we direct it mostly to children and teens, men and women with convictions deserving second chances, opportunity youth, which are those 16 to 24 years old who don't have a job and they're not in school, and for public safety, because the victims of violent crime are suffering. The city had these challenges. These Memphians had these challenges before the pandemic, but those challenges have gotten worse since March of 2020 when this pandemic hit Memphis. The good news is with these funds, we can change lives, improve things for those who are most in need, real, substantive relief, lifting people up for long-term success. And that's why we put this list together. Secondly, y'all mentioned concern about this being one-time money, and I understand that concern. We are not proposing money for raises or salaries for fire, police, public works, solid waste, not core services. Everything we've proposed can stop in 2 or 3 years when the funding stops. And if I were mayor at that time, which I will not be, but if I were, at the conclusion of these programs, and if the data shows they are making a difference that we're saying they're going to make, then I would work very hard to figure out a way to fund it, either out of city government money or private dollars. So I appreciate y'all's consideration, and I'll turn it over to our CFO.
Good afternoon, Council. Shirley Ford, Chief Financial Officer, 5343 Mason Road, Memphis, Tennessee, 38120. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. The proposals before you today and on Tuesday of next week are in an effort to provide a sustainable foundation for a strong, equitable economic recovery, not only by providing economic stabilization to households, to our city assets, and to some of our nonprofit partners, but also by addressing the systemic public health and economic challenges within our city, both operationally, structurally, and for our community operations. As Mayor Strickland said, we've taken a lot of time to present to you a proposal of how we think is to allocate our one-time limited funding to respond to those needs of our community and to ensure that we have the resources we need to continue to take actions to COVID-19 and bring the pandemic under control, to provide support for costs incurred in addressing this pandemic, to offer premium pay to our essential workers, which you have approved, and to ensure that we can continue to provide the services we need to avoid cuts or layoffs to our staff, and to lay that foundation for the recovery by addressing some of those issues that we're going to share with you today. So if we could start the presentation, please, Ashley. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So I know Councilman Morgan allotted an hour for me. I promise you, I am not going to be here that long. A lot of this you've heard before. We're just kind of going to do a broad overview and then focus in on the particular areas that kind of fall under the finance division related to the revenue replacement and the city allocation cost analysis. So we want to share that with you. So if we could go to the next slide. Again, this is just a general overview that these provisions authorize the use of payments from the federal government to respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19, to deal with some of the economic and financial impacts of the pandemic. And we've kind of, with the exception of the premium pay, these are all kind of forward-looking for costs that were incurred in situations that have continued to be present in our communities since March of this year. And then again, the funds must be incurred by December of 2024, and there is an additional 2-year kind of leeway for anything if it continues, if we have building or other programs that have been specifically designed to that. Nothing that we are doing here for this proposal applies to that, but just to let you know, we are looking at a stop point in the future. Next slide. So again, there are 4 big categories that these funds are allowed to be used for. We've covered those: the public health emergency, premium pay, revenue loss, and then the infrastructure. Many of you, I know some of you have reached out to me specifically regarding the infrastructure. There was some movement yesterday for the separate infrastructure bill. I think it passed the Senate and is in the House. So there is some movement on there that could impact the one area that we are looking at for allocation, and that is the broadband allocation. So there may be some additional information regarding that use as well. Next slide. So one of the big areas that we've talked about, we talked a lot about this during budget season, is the revenue loss and the ability, very different from the CARES Act funding from the federal government, that does allow for revenue replacement into the operations of the municipalities across the nation, and specifically to us across our state. So as we've had some of those budget shortfalls that are specific to the pandemic, originally we thought we could just look at line items. As you all know, the additional ruling came out and the information came out that you have to do it on an aggregate basis. But since that time, there have been some questions, and there's been a lot of discussion and advice, both from the GFOA and from our state, that there is going to be some latitude about where you actually put those funds. And while we are still awaiting the final rule, we do expect to have a final rule on this in September. We are very comfortable estimating a minimum of $38 million for revenue replacement. Now, it could be more than that, and there's some broad latitudes there. But as we sit down as a group to discuss a proposal to bring to you for consideration of what we thought was the best use of that fund, obviously, we want to ensure that we have the ability to replace revenue into those funds that require it. But also, it is a one-time use of funds that we can use in other areas. And as the mayor said, this is an incredible opportunity for us to reach out into our community with this funding. So we are limiting our request on this to $38 million. Now, I do have to make one clarification. When I presented to you last Tuesday, I said that the amount that we would be asking for general operation funds would be $24 million. I'm sorry, I had one of my numbers in the wrong place. That is actually $14 million. And I originally said $5 million in the TDC revenue, and that amount is actually $15 million. So we are looking at those numbers, and I apologize, that was me getting those two mixed up between those allocations. And then we're still holding for $9 million to the hotel motel fund. As you guys know, tourism and industry took a huge hit during this time period. Next slide. So here's what, this is just kind of from our previous slide, you know that we broke the allocations down into FY22 and out year periods. So when you see the slashes out there, that just means that this is the allocation we are proposing for FY22. And again, up to $38 million that we are asking for approval to allocate to revenue replacement. Approximately 14 million of that would be into our general fund or general fund operations. 15 million of it is in the downtown tourism development zone area. And the split there means that the 4 million that you see going out into the next coming periods is related to the downtown TDZ, because we won't actually know what our receipts are going to be until September of this year. And then in the hotel motel fund, an amount approximately up to $9 million. Next slide. The next area that we are asking for your approval on is an amount to help asset recovery and revenue recovery for some of our city-owned assets. We are estimating amount up to $5 million. And as you can see from this presentation, our prior presentation, we are estimating $3.4 million into FY22, an additional $1.6 million in the out periods. We have met with or spoken with representatives from each of these that you have listed above, the Renaissance Convention Center, which all of you are, I'm sure, very aware of the issues there. The Memphis Botanic Gardens, we are looking at operational amounts there. And I will tell you, there's a huge event for them that typically happens, and that is the Live at the Garden series, which typically makes a lot of money, and it carries their budget. I mean, without that money, they just operate at a loss. So they were unable to have those concerts last year. As you know, we are back into those concerts, and hopefully they will be staying this year. But they have sustained some losses that they have asked for help from us for. Also, the Brooks Museum, the Liberty Bowl, the Museum of Science and History, which is formerly known as the Pink Palace Museum, and the Woodruff Fontaine Historic Homes. We haven't assigned specifics to those. We wanted to make this proposal to you that we are looking for amounts up to $5 million. It could be, we know specifically what they are telling us that they anticipate for FY22 and what they have incurred for FY21, but we are giving them the opportunity, as most of these are also on the same fiscal year as we are, to kind of get their audits together so we can see what those exact numbers for the ending year of FY21 looks like. Next slide. So the other area that we talked to you a little bit about was the construction cost accelerator. We asked you for approximately $5 million to this initiative. And I just wanted to share with you, I know some of you have heard this as we have come to council in our CIP projects, and we're kind of moving things around or asking for additional funds for particular projects. I just wanted to share with you that this is not just us. This is not just Memphis. It's not just Tennessee. Thank you, Councilman Carla. I included this quote from PwC.com just to say that this is global, and it's across operations in ways that are very difficult to model and to assess. So, but we know that we're feeling it and we're dealing with it. And Director Adams is going to share some additional information with you just so that you know this. But the concerns are continuing to mount over depleting or idling stock, and companies fear that they won't meet the contractual obligations on time. We are dealing with that same issue within the city of Memphis. And then I also wanted to share with you that even though some of the activity is picked up in May, and we have this kind of pent-up demand and a reopening of the economy of boosting orders, we still have shortages of raw materials, and we have container shortages, things being able to get moved and get to us. And then when they get here, we're also still dealing, even though there are jobs out there, we're still dealing sometimes with labor shortages as well. So that is having an impact. So one of the contributing factors that has been shared with us is the shift in demand to goods from services during the pandemic period when people were at home and they started doing all of these projects, and it kind of strained some of the supply chains. And then you had the disruption to your labor market. So we are feeling some of those, and we are experiencing some of the raw material shortages and price increases as we have approached our projects as well. Next page.
That's $1.9 trillion infrastructure plan.
Fingers crossed.
Addition will further exacerbate.
Right. So I think the, I'm sorry, next slide, please. Ashley, thank you. So we have, again, we're estimating amount up to $5 million. We're looking currently in FY22 addressing approximately $2 million, and then another $2 million into our next fiscal year. And then we put another one out there just to see kind of what's happening. Director Adams is going to talk to you about some of these specifics that I have listed here. But in addition to what we're going to, and these are just some of the examples that we wanted to share with you, and he's going to give you additional information about some of the challenges we have had with, you know, getting architects to give us project cost back in February, March, and even April of last year, and then what's happening to us now as we're starting to move on some of those projects. So we do have the impact on our normal operations just within the city, and then with our CIP. And so very importantly is the impact that this is having on our Accelerate Memphis projects, which everyone here has been wonderful and so supportive of. And as we're moving out into that, we're finding some real challenges with the materials and the labor and in our Accelerate Memphis projects as well. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Director Adams to discuss some of the specifics and give you specific examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ford. Antonio Adams, Division Director, General Services. So what you have on the current screen is just a snapshot of a few of our projects that we have experienced some budgetary issues, specifically budgetary overruns, as we've gotten through the design and through the procurement process. And now we have to now what we call value engineer, which is reduce in scope to the extent that we can to make this a viable project. And in many instances, we can't. So I'll just kind of start with maybe the first couple to give you a glimpse. So the City of Memphis Fleet Maintenance Building, the original price for this particular item, which is the prefab building. So it's the structure in which is going to house this operation. The original bid price was $1 million. However, our subcontractor returned to the general contractor and quoted a price in addition, which is $1.7 million. So we thought, they're gouging us. There's no way. And what we decided to do was test the market. And we understood that, quite honestly, after we talked to 3 other vendors, this is indeed the escalation that we're going to be facing to finish this project. Then, of course, you have the drain maintenance building project. The material escalation has increased about $350,000 for round it up. And most of that is just in door hardware and miscellaneous steel products. You have the Avery Avenue Renovations Phase 2. It was estimated by the design team on April 30th at $1,008,000. We received the lowest bid, which was $1,677,000 August 4th. So as you can see, as we move through our bid process during this particular time, notwithstanding when it has occurred throughout this year, we are facing price escalations. And most of the price escalations are in pre-engineered steel, miscellaneous steel, concrete, fencing, metal shelving and metal lockers and overhead doors. We are noticing that on the operations end, where a lot of our contractors that we normally contract with to get material to repair and maintain our buildings, those prices have increased as well. So we are feeling that particular crunch. And I think this is vitally important to discuss as we move forward into Accelerate Memphis as well, because we are in the design phase of those projects, and we're trying to move rapidly through that so we can start construction. What will happen is we will have to value engineer to bring this within budget, and it will reduce the scope of what we anticipate receiving when initially approving and appropriating the funds. So we're asking for some additional support to cover. Now, we're doing everything that we can, again, to value engineer and reduce scope so that we stay, we do reduce cost. But the reality is we do need additional money to support these particular projects. So with that, I'll open up any questions that you may have of me.
Councilman Jones and Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. And I received a call from a contractor who's doing business with the city and expressed the sentiments exactly. Question that I have, we've just listed 7 items here.
Yes, sir.
I know we have more than 7 items going on at this time and over the next couple of years before this issue seems to subside. So my question is this enough?
So I'll say this. This is our request. Give us an opportunity to look and then, of course, value engineer. I'll tell you, there are 2 projects now that they're mechanical projects that I have, and it's a part of my major mod. I'm going to have to get at least another $150,000 to cover that project. I value engineered it to the extent that it's not going to be an operational mechanical system. So I'll have to cover that. But I think at this point, it would be speculative and wasteful spending for me to ask for additional money now, not knowing what the true need would be.
Well, I appreciate that, yeah. But I think before we commit to anything like this,
yes, sir,
I think it would be helpful for us in helping us make our decision if we had an idea of all the projects that we have going on. Gotcha. And then those that within the next 12 months are slated to be completed, maybe even going beyond that.
Gotcha.
Before we sit here and just say $5 million over the next 3 years, and we could very well have $20 million worth of needs. I would rather us be deliberate and look at a comprehensive list before we commit to this, spend it on everything else, and we know that there are projects that have to be done. It's just the timing of things. Nobody could have predicted or anticipated this.
Yes.
I would rather us be judicious with that, because if we commit everything now, where's the money to finish these things going to come from? And that's the concern that I have about it.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councilman Jones said a lot of good things. I tend to agree with where he's going. I thought that was speaking of judicious, I thought that was a very judicious answer from a director with the chief financial officer sitting next to you.
This is our request.
Right. Very, very well done. I mentioned the infrastructure bill, which, yeah, would be great. Fingers crossed. I'm all for it. But it's going to create even more of a problem for the average Joe in the marketplace when the federal government is injecting that kind of capital. If you talk to major GCs, they're excited but incredibly nervous about it because they don't even know that they can get labor and supplies to fill that influx of capital and projects. So I'm going to be really interested to see kind of what the large capital market underwriters and people that weigh in on that what their guidance, like PwC will weigh into that. It's going to be very interesting, and it's going to continue to drive pricing up. That's right. What I would say is the answer is no. I'll say it for you, but I got it. You're picking. There's a limited bucket of money. I think generally we have to think about I'm okay if we appropriate it or earmark it every dollar. And that could be even into a contingency fund. I'm fine. But then it becomes our responsibility to go back and be nimble enough to be able to move money around as we see fit. I think we as a body have to determine, what do we want to do? Do we want to keep everything in an unassigned fund and then move it out the door multiple times? Or do we want to go ahead and lay out a roadmap knowing that we're going to come back and maybe tweak it here or there? One of the things, and you can speak to this, goes back to the revenue replacement. I'm a little nervous that we're short-sighting ourselves. Like if we go and, let's say we approve the mayor's plan and then we come up with $13 million of things that we would like to do as community or council-led initiatives. And then the guidance loosens up more and we could have put another 12 million into the bottom line. And again, the way I see it is that the bottom line still goes out to the community. That can be, we can debate that, but for today, bear with me. I'm concerned that we're going to go spend everything in a rush to get things out the door, and we may be short-sighted. So that's more of a philosophical point. I'm not sure, but I mean, that's certainly on the table as a possibility, right, Chief Ford?
It most definitely is. And to follow in Antonio's lead here, this is what I'm requesting. There was a limited group, and again, we met with our senior leadership team, and and the mayor guided these areas that he wanted to make in this proposal to you. I could tell you behind the door that I wanted every penny of it for revenue replacement, whether I could use it or not. But that is a very real factor. And I think with the when we do receive the final ruling, then there is an absolute that I can make a revenue replacement calculation specific, because I'll go back and remind you, it's comparative to FY19 base at a 4.1% accelerator for a time exponent of 1.5, which is basically the 18 months. It's 18 over 12. So that's the time since that measurement period that you calculate this counterfactual revenue for comparison to what your actual revenue was for the calendar year FY20. So, at our first glance, yes, and we've gotten some additional responses back to the what was specifically driving part of our formula calculation was the local option sales tax revenue, which was new to us. We didn't have that in FY19, and it was approximately $56 million for the calendar year. So that had a huge impact on the formula. How we can address pieces of that and how they have given us additional guidance in the FAQs related to what is internal, what is truly a federal grant that you can take out of your calculation. All of those factors that kind of can bend that calculation one way or the other could move. I could tell you it could be somewhere between 73 million and 15 million based on how they determine those final calculations. Now, the one thing is, if this is approved, if this is a revenue replacement, it comes in as a revenue line, and it comes into the budget. And what we are seeing so far is that the Treasury is allowing some latitude as to which fund you put that in, even though the calculation was based on an aggregate. So I wanted to put a placeholder in there for us that I felt like on the initial calculation would be sufficient to address the revenue loss that we had experienced so far based on that formula.
Thank you, Chief. That's very helpful. And I know we got to move on because I don't want to be here till 6 o'clock. This just goes back to philosophicals. Like there are things in this proposal, and I know that council members have. I know Councilman Jones has got a proposal that there are things that I'm on board. We've got to get some of this money out the door into the community immediately. I mean, something like Boys and Girls Club, where there's a KPI on how they operate and what they're able to do, I think is incredible. And I think for the staff, if we can make sure for Tuesday or before Tuesday to have the document that came from the administration that showed the tranching of the commitments is helpful too, because that's another way to look at it. Because we're getting it in 2 tranches. And I know that some organizations will need to know the commitment, like Boys and Girls Club, so they can plan for it. But I think the timing too may be important to understand when those obligations are going to be due and maybe where the flexibility might be down the road for us as we're looking at the whole picture over 3 years. So anyway, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members? Just to follow up again on Councilman Jones's point, I think it's very fair. Y'all have, as the administration, had the opportunity to look at these projects that there might be an additional construction cost to, and y'all weigh that against the other projects that you want to put in this. And y'all have had that opportunity to look at everything, choose what you think is best, and present it with a unified voice. This is our presentation. But as we deliberate and go through this information, I think it's important for us to be able to look at the total picture as well, more than just what's being presented. So if anything else can be made plain and available on that, that would be, I think, important context for us.
Thank you, Council Chairman Morgan. There are, as you know, we had in our CIP for this year, $90 million that was allocated. And we had some carryover from some other projects. And to Director Adams' point, some of these are ongoing. And we, look at this and does it make sense to hold this for a little bit? We're near completion on some of these projects. The library is very important for us to get that done, to get it finished. And then it helps us kind of put some priority to the projects that you have already approved the allocations, and gives us a little bit of flexibility. And I will say this for Director Adams, yes, of course, $5 million is not enough to do this. But is it reasonable enough for us to start evaluating where we are with some of these projects? And that's why we spread it out over a period. So thank you, Council. So if there are any other questions to this part of the presentation, we have a group of people behind us here who are here to present these proposals to you. You ask for additional information, and rightfully so, and they want to share that information with you. So we hope that you will find these presentations do exactly what we propose they do, that they will address the needs of our city government and those of our community. And we appreciate the opportunity. So as the series of speakers come up, we'll call them according to the agenda, sir, that you've set out, and they will introduce themselves to you and then give you the opportunity to ask any questions related to that. And I just thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today and to share this additional information.
Thank you. And I think for all the presenters, there are going to be at least 2 questions that I would ask of everybody. So if you can address in the presentation, many of your organizations we're familiar with. We've been involved with, we've worked before, but specifically, where is the ARPA funding going towards, and how is it going to be spent? And then also to what the mayor talked about earlier, which is what problem did COVID create that those ARPA funds are going to solve, or what problem did COVID exacerbate that they're going to solve? Just kind of specifically, if y'all can, some of it might be obvious, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it of everybody if y'all can just touch on that a little bit in your presentation.
I'll add one more to that, which is what other funds that you know of today that you'll be going after, or have been awarded on a go-forward basis. So if you were awarded something in FY20, I got it. That's expended. But if there's a large bucket of money out there, like you're a live music venue that you're going to be applying for, just generally an idea of what you're going after too.
Yep, that'd be helpful as well. We're not the only pot of money out there right now being distributed based on COVID relief. Any other comments or questions from council members before we go to presentations? Councilman Jones?
I just want to add and re-emphasize too, and Ms. Ford, you mentioned the number of $90 million that we have a project. And so if we still are saying that $2 million of 90 is barely a little bit close to 1% of that. And if we're saying that the price increases from an inflationary standpoint are greater than that, I'm still concerned that we haven't allotted enough. And that should almost be the driver of this. We allocate that first because otherwise, to Mr. Carlisle's point, we'll be pulling from the general fund to complete these projects. And so that's diverting money from other things that we're working on. So I think we really, we're in a lot of these things, we're in the middle of construction of them.
Yeah. And I agree with you, or that they will be constructed to a size or scope that was less than what was presented to us when we approved
But
it.
if you talk about a fire station, and
I'm with you.
we're building things like that, I don't think we can go back. You can only value engineer to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So I think that that's almost to me, that's our starting point. Because otherwise, if some of these, if this is, and as you said, this is $1 million, the first thing here, fleet maintenance building. If it was 1 million, you're saying this is an additional 1.7 million. So we're talking about more than 100% increase on this. So to say that $2 million for this first year of ARPA funds, I have a grave concern that we are not allocating enough. And if we have a shortfall, that's going to come from general fund. And I think that these are the type of things that ARPA was designed to do. We look at that first, and then that drives what's available for everything else, in my humble opinion.
And I completely understand and agree with your sentiment. I guess the reason that we don't rush to put all of that out is because understanding the current market, we have a lot of projects that we have just approved to move forward in design. And it gives us an opportunity then to appropriately design to see if we can meet that. And you're right, that wouldn't be the time to come back and ask for additional funds. But right now, while we're in the development stage, we can do so. You make an accurate point in which we should now look at the next 2 years worth of projects that we have slated and identify those projects and look to see where we can probably expedite that. But what that requires is that we start moving through design at this point and get shovel-ready projects so we understand what money will be needed. And so with that is going to require additional money too to put the design teams to work to move forward with that. So what I will do with my team and the other division directors, I will work with them and we'll put together that list, and we will come back to you with as educated a number as we possibly can, so we can look at that. But also take in consideration we have projects that are in queue that will come in with some savings. And as previously done, I'm traditional where there's a saving in one particular project. I'll come before you and I'll ask to reallocate and reappropriate those funds toward a worthy project. So we are going to be the best steward of the dollar. And so I hear you. I'll come back with that, and then we can have a further discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
Thank you, Chair, so much for the opportunity. Director Adams, when you come back with that report, will you be able to say which projects could actually be postponed for a period of time so those funds may be used to complete some other projects rather? Is that a possibility?
I could prioritize.
Okay, right.
We could prioritize, but I would dare say that we probably don't have any projects that are eligible for postponement. The current state of our facilities and is in dire need of some attention. So I will definitely come back with a priority.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing nothing else, we're going to go ahead and move on to our first presenter, which is the Boys and Girls Club. We do, and if you'll just introduce yourself, well, not you, Mr. Mayor, but and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to talk briefly, and I'm going to ask Keith to introduce himself in this program. But I'm really excited about this proposal. As some of you know, we have 27 high schools in the Shelby County system in the city of Memphis. One, Craigmont has a successful partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. In short, the seniors in that program, 100% graduate high school, and 100% of them go on to college, a military career, or get a job. Wouldn't it be great if every young person had that opportunity? I'm proposing we add 10 more high schools with the money that I've proposed for you. The money, I want to make clear, would go to the Boys and Girls Club, and they would operate in the schools. The money would not go to Shelby County Schools. And I'm also happy to say supporters of the Boys and Girls Clubs, including Fred Smith, have committed to matching, at least in part, the city's contribution so that we collectively could add 15 to 20 high schools to this program. You know, 2/3 of all the high schools could have this program. I'll turn it over to Keith.
Good afternoon. Keith Blanchard. I'm CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mayor Strickland, I appreciate the kind words, and we also are very excited about the possibility of doing this. I don't want to go through the whole proposal. I know you've seen that, but what I do want to say is I've heard three things today already. A mention about juvenile crime and the problems that have come with crime lately, a struggling workforce and companies struggling to find employees, an academic slide, which we all know has happened with COVID, and there was an article today about that, math and in particular. Those are three things that we deal with on a daily basis and have for over 60 years. As you know, our technical training center, which was the first of its kind in the United States, it was the first Boys and Girls Club dedicated to workforce development, has been highly successful and gotten recognition all over the country, especially from our national headquarters. It's now being replicated all over the country, and we have CEOs and board members from across the United States that come here all the time to tour our facilities and see what we do. So that's one piece. And what we propose to do is work with the principals of the high schools, much in the way we've done with Principal Duride at Craigmont, and determine what the needs are, what the facility has to offer, and what we could best do there. For example, today I got a call from PPG, the painting company, and they want to develop a workforce development program to train painters and also in supply chain management and logistics. Just 2 weeks ago, we've been working with FedEx for almost a year to be able to get them to look to hire our kids that were under 18. So we were finally able to do that. We had our first 15 kids FedEx hour with full benefits and tuition. And they even have a small campus set up at FedEx where they can do their homework while they're in school. It's a pretty amazing program. Those are the types of opportunities that we think we can provide our kids, at the high schools. And in some cases, we'll bring them to the technical training center for specific training. Another example is music studios. We now have those in some of our clubs, and we're able to do that virtually through our partnership with Notes for Notes, which is a national company. And there's many more. I mean, the sky's the limit, and there's so many businesses that want to work with us. Williams-Sonoma just placed a bunch of kids there. They now sponsor our culinary arts program, Juice Plus, Nike, the list goes on and on. So I think if you really want to make an impact, the best place to invest is in these kids. And I know what they're capable of. I've seen it time and time again, and all I ask is that we give them a chance. And this is an opportunity that maybe comes along once in a lifetime, but I think we really can do it. And I'm excited to work with Shelby County Schools. We have a history already at Cummings Elementary. We're also in some charter schools, so those types of partnerships we've proved can work and work well. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. We have one broad question for the mayor that's been asked online. And just in general, how were these organizations selected? Of the ones that we'll hear from today, what was y'all's process for choosing? And then we'll go to the council queue, Boys and Girls Club.
Well, I've been trying to figure out a partnership with Boys and Girls Club for 6 years. When I ran for mayor the first time, if you had to endure any of my campaign speeches, I guarantee you heard Boys and Girls Club, because I knew their success rate, that 100%. So how could we do it? I could never find a way in our general fund to do what we're doing. As you know, our general fund does just not grow enough to do all the things we need to do in city government. So when this federal funds came, and that Craigmont partnership blossomed like it had, I picked them based on success. The other groups are mostly internal. Regional One, because that came to our attention because that's negatively affecting us and our operations through the fire department. There aren't enough beds there to handle trauma patients and the COVID patients. So that's how it came to our attention there. The Fresh Market is a small amount of money, but it's that was a proposal made to me that you'll hear from later. And I think the rest are internal.
Okay, thank you. First up is Councilman Logan, then Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation and to your staff. I too have heard wonderful things about the Craigmont Boys and Girls Club and am really excited about what's going on there. My question is, have we considered, or is there consideration for, instead of 10 high schools, starting earlier, maybe elementary school age or middle school age, because I know it's so important to reach children and youth at an early age, especially after through this pandemic, we've seen an increase in juvenile violent crime in earlier ages. So that's my question concerning this particular ask. Thank you. You're back.
The answer to your question is yes, and I think we're open to it. Superintendent Ray requested all high schools, so we'd be open to a conversation with him, but that was his request.
Thank you, Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you. Good to see you. How are you? Happy you're here. I'm really excited about this opportunity. So how many students, refresh my memory, for $6 million, how many students will we touch?
It really kind of varies from high school to high school. If we use Craigmont as an example, just prior to the pandemic, we had 465 members, which was the fastest growing club we had ever had. So I think, you know, depending on the number of students at the school, we were seeing an increase year after year. And so I think that's a good baseline number.
My colleague, Councilman Ford, brought up an incredible series of points last Tuesday, one of which I think when it comes to nonprofits, and especially large scale, about how the dollar hits the classroom from the investment to the student. And it's always kind of in the performance. And this is one of the things that I love about the Craigmont program and the Boys and Girls Club in general. And I keep saying it over and over again, the data is there. My issues, and we talk about these one-time, lifetime changing opportunities. And when you have a performance record that's been demonstrated, I don't know why we wouldn't get behind it more forcefully. Not to throw the council grant program under the bus here, because it's debated heavily, and I can respect council members' opinion, but we don't really have like a KPI for like what happens when that money goes up the door. We have people come in and talk about the lives that they've impacted or how many people they've serviced, and that's important. I get that, but I guess what I'm saying is there's a tangible performance indicator here, and I'm sitting here wondering, with this once-in-a-lifetime kind of bucket of money, if we shouldn't be expanding that program with more dollars. And that's more of a general question to the body. Again, I recognize this is finite, but when you've got a program that's seemingly very successful and you can touch the lives of these students, I don't know. I wish there was more we could do. And so last question, I guess, this is all going into the high schools, not into the Boys and Girls Club facilities as well? Or is it both?
As of right now, it would be the 10 proposed high schools.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this.
Thank Councilwoman Easter Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor. On the presentation, it says expanding to 50, so it's not 50, it's 10. Is it in the, yeah.
Oh, that's a typo. It's 10.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Because I was like 50 to 10. So my questions, and y'all are doing great work. I remember y'all took us on a tour last year of the facility in the mall. Out of the children, you say you have 400 and something students last year. How many, what were the grade breakdown on that? For the 100% senior graduation rate, how many were seniors that were a part of their program that also aligned with the graduation rate?
I'd have to get back to you on the exact number. I'm not really sure. I do know that the majority of kids were juniors and seniors. And then things have constantly changed. Like over the summer, we actually had quite a few Craigmont Middle School students attend that particular club. But normally the majority of students, because to be eligible for our workforce program and get paid the stipend, which we pay all of our members, they have to be juniors or seniors, with a few exceptions, but the majority of them are. So most of the kids that signed up for the club were juniors or seniors.
But we can get you those exactly.
Yeah, I can get you the exact.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested to see. And how do the students sign up? Are they told to sign up? Is it during school? Is it after school? Because I guess my thought is that having the access doesn't mean that they'll participate. Because you can have all types of programs, and
right.
3 kids show up, 3 kids do exceedingly well, but it's 300 out there not doing the program. So how do they sign up? And with this, how can we, if we're going to do this in a one-time thing for 3 years, which of course it takes a couple of years to get programs going and effective, how can we make sure that we reach almost every student in the schools that we're going into to make it worth our while for an extra program that students would have an access to?
Yes, ma'am. Again, it starts, to me, a lot of time it starts with the principal, but they, together with the staff and the teachers, they spread the word out. We did an assembly. We did a meeting at the beginning of the year. We do that every year, like an orientation, and then the kids sign up. It's not mandatory. It is an after-school program and a summer program. So we've done both. It's all day long during the summer. We provide breakfast, lunch, and a dinner. And then during the school year, it's an after-school program. We provide a snack and a meal at the end of the day. We track every day the average daily attendance, so we know what it is. And like I said, up until COVID, it was on a continual year-over-year increase, and the average daily attendance increase as well. Unfortunately, sometimes we're too successful, and that means, it sounds funny, but a lot of times the purpose of this program is workforce development and job training. And a lot of times after 6 months or a year, our kids get offered a job, and a good job, and they'll take it. And so they may not attend much beyond that, but that's a good problem to have. And but normally, one of the advantages, and you mentioned earlier, the elementary and middle school age. I mean, it is an advantage when a child starts with us at 6 years old and stays with us all the way through high school. And that's, where we've seen the most success, that's where it's been. But I've been amazed at what we were able to do at Craigmont. And I want to give a lot of credit to the principal there, but also to my club director, Chris Garner. And you all know Chris. Chris is in the Memphis Hall of Fame and played in the NBA. And he's been with me now for 5 years. And so the kids just love him. And that helps. So finding talented people like that, that's what makes the difference.
And just two more, it'll be quick, Chair. Did we get in writing those matches from the other organizations? Like, are they for sure gonna match us if we are able to allocate this so we can expand it into more schools?
We will get at least $1 million, and we're working to grow it to get a full match of 3.
Okay. And I would like to say, Mr. Blanchard, please put the school that I'm at on the top priority list for this first wave. So I'll be waiting on the email for that.
I will say Dr. Ray will be involved in the selection.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Jones?
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Blanchard. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I'm looking at the last page of the printed brochure. And one of the things that I like about the Boys and Girls Club is how it's geographically dispersed to help and influence other, I guess, various parts of the city of Memphis. But my question is, and it's probably more so to the mayor in coming up with this. I just may be unfamiliar with it, but did we take a look at what may be other organizations that may have a similar footprint that affect the same amount of children? There may not be any, but I'm curious to know how Boys and Girls was selected. It may have been because they have a reach all over the city of Memphis, but I'd just be interested in hearing about that. It could have been talking to Superintendent Ray, and because he's working with children every day, that's the big influence, but I just want to.
My choice of Boys and Girls Club is based on that experience. As mayor, I've been exposed to a lot of great groups. And the reason I'm sold on Boys and Girls Club is, number one, they keep their data and they publish their data, and it's been extraordinarily successful. And number two, they're the only ones I know of that have such an incredible program like at Craigmont. And if you read that letter from the principal of Craigmont, it's overwhelmingly flowing in benefits. And then I also, frankly, knew that there was a private side to this, that if we could double the amount of money that we've got, growth would be incredible. So all those reasons. And that's no slight on any other group.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Robinson?
Thank you. I think this is a great opportunity for us in the city of Memphis, and I have always supported Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., and other organizations in our community. I was concerned about $9 million going to Boys and Girls Club when we have other organizations that have the same kind of results and they track them and people understand that. And because we have so many different issues, and this is my real concern, is that we have communities that have different needs and how we can address those needs, and they can't be just cookie cutter approaches in all those communities. So we're adding 10 programs. That means that's $900,000 a program for after school program and summer work. So how many students will actually get to participate so that we can translate that down to how much we're going to spend on each child, hoping that this program will be successful and to reduce some of the crime in our community, as well as increase our rate of students that will be graduating. So what does that look like? 10 programs, $900,000 a program. How many students will be addressed for that $900,000 a year?
I'll let Keith answer. I'll let Keith answer the rest of it. I do want to point out it's $300,000 per program per year. It's $900,000 over 3 years.
Again, like I said earlier,
on the chart that I got, it doesn't say that. It says $9 million.
So Councilwoman, it's $9 million total, and that's going to be spread out over 3 years. So $3 million a year for the next 3 years for a total of $9 million. So yeah, it should be $300,000 per location per year in terms of the cost.
Okay, and how much is that per student, and how many students will participate?
Well, like I said earlier, a good estimate, if we use Craigmont as the model, is about 465 students enrolled. I think that's going to vary a little bit, by school, but I think that's a good number to work from.
And what are the metrics that you will be tracking so that we know that this program is successful?
Well, we have a variety of things that we track. We have a system called National Youth Outcomes Initiative. It's the Boys and Girls Club of America survey that we do every year with all of our kids and all of our staff. So it tracks everything from not just attendance, but it attracts student performance. It attracts a lot of social and emotional issues. For example, it asks questions like, does the staff know my name? Do I feel safe in the club? It's over 100 questions that all the students answer. We've scored in the top 10% nationwide for the last 5 years in a row. And some of our individual clubs have done even better than that. That's one thing that we track. With the workforce development program, we track obviously their graduation rate, but we also track the number of interviews that go on, the jobs that they attain, whether it's part-time or full-time, and then we're trying to track long-term out more than 4 or 5 years now, whether or not they sustain that job and what their current salary is today. So those are all things that we track. But there's many, many more, and I'll be glad. It's like the mayor said, it is published. That NYOI survey we publish every year. And it's something that we use a lot. For example, it's something we use to report to United Way because it is a very comprehensive, and it's a slightly different, to be honest, it's very different because the kids have a lot of input into the programs based on that survey. So you're right, we have a lot of programs that we have access to. And that's one of the real advantages of being a national organization, the size and scope of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, is we have access to over 120 different programs and many, many training opportunities that we can do online and in person. So one of the things, and I know I've talked to the mayor about this, but one of the things that I feel like that we're so successful is the people that we hire and the amount of training that we give them. So we created in Memphis, we were the first one to do this, but I created a training academy here, much like a police academy. When you go off to the academy and you spend about, 6 months in an academy, we have about a 4-week academy. And so you're doing hands-on training with somebody standing over your shoulder, watching you teach children, and we determine whether it's a good fit for you and then what your skill sets are. So then we match that with the programs that we have at that particular site. So it's a combination of staff, talent, and kids' needs, and then that all kind of funnels into these outcomes. So I'd be more than glad to share them with you because I think it's a really interesting tool that we have to show.
Okay. Mr. Blanchard, I'm not going to take any more of your time, but I'd like to have a personal conversation with you about this, please.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other council members in the queue? Councilman Carlisle?
I just want to say again, thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I know we probably know some of the same meetings you're in. If there's anything that I can do, whether it's a phone call or a meeting with some of those staffs that are in those organizations, anything I can do, and let's talk on the side too about participation too. I'm happy to help. So.
Sure, thank you. And we will, the data, that last question, Councilwoman Robinson's question, we will get that data to all of you, in addition to the answers to Councilman Easter Thomas's questions.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd encourage any council member, if you have questions, go tour one of the clubs and facilities. Last time I was there, it's been too long. I need to get a refresher. But walk in on a class of kids that were working on motherboards and soldering, and then another class that I think it was beginning welding class, and then there was another with forklift. And as I talked to employers, especially in the last few months, last year, that are struggling, big-time employers in the city of Memphis, high technical skills, what the Boys and Girls Club it just fits in so well to many of the needs and opportunities here. I've been highly, highly impressed. Thank you all so much for the work that you do. And would love to plug in more personally as well. All right, so no other comments or questions from council members. We'll go on to the next presentation, which is Collins Chapel.
All right. Good afternoon.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, if you'll just introduce yourself and your position, then the floor is yours for presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Ashley Cash, Director of Housing and Community Development, 110 Plantation Woods Cove. Bishop, do you want to introduce yourself as well before we get into the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. I'm chair of the board of College Chapel Connection Hospital. I've come to say thank you to the mayor and to all of you city council members because of the CARES Act financial assistance we received. Our project is ongoing, it's working. 24-hour homeless care now through our Room in the Inn partnership. And I've come to say thank you. And there'll be a short video presentation. Of course, we know Chris Woods is here with us. We found the best contractor in the nation. We've done such excellence. And I really want to thank him because we're here to give you this good report of our stewardship with the finances you provided. But we needed a construction company that would help us finish before they got paid. They were patient. And we're here simply to show you what has happened. Our former HCD director, Paul Young, for making the introduction, to Reverend Lisa Anderson, director of Room in the Inn, which allowed College Chapel to be used for providing needed services to what I know are now called unsheltered guests. And
Bishop,
we're thankful. Please.
So if you can go to the next slide, please. We've just got a really brief presentation. So we're requesting $1 million for College Chapel. As Bishop said, it's for unsheltered individuals. It's the first recuperative care, I have to practice saying that, center. But essentially it means when individuals who are unsheltered are coming out of the hospital, a lot of us are privileged to be able to go home, recover at our home with family around. People who are unsheltered don't have that privilege. And so this is a space for them to recover, recuperate, and hopefully be able to connect them to additional services, rapid rehousing, kind of transition them into the next phase as they do recover. This is a partnership between Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, CME, Room in the Inn, the city of Memphis, and the county. HCD previously funded College Chapel with about $750,000 from our CDBG cares. But as Bishop said, there were more renovations that were needed to make the building whole, to make it habitable and bring it up to today's code and standards. And so we'd be requesting that additional $1 million of ARPA funding for this project. That's essentially what I have to share. I'm happy to respond to any questions that, or Bishop can respond to any questions. Did you say you had a video?
We do have a video.
Okay.
And I want to thank our project coordinator, Juliet, Wydell Pittman, and the other partners. I want you to see what we have now because of all of you. Here we see the exterior that has been done so well, and here we are in the interior. This is a walkthrough with Reverend Anderson and I to just see what has been accomplished, and even more has been accomplished since then. First-rate bathrooms, shower facilities, excellent. Rooms for the children to learn and grow. We have over 30 homeless children now unsheltered guests who have a place to stay. And they go to school and come back to a place to stay. 24-hour care, 3 shifts of people working 11 to 7, 7 to 3, 3 to 11. So we are employing persons who provide this care through, of course, Room in the Inn and our work with Micah. All of this is now fully operational, and we're so grateful. So you can see why Chris Wood's Construction, we are indebted to them, and we certainly, as our capable director has said, want to make sure the cost overruns are paid, because we could not have gotten into the building if we had not met all of the city codes and projects that were needed to get us started. And now, 3-4 months later, we are fully operational. And I'm so grateful and so proud. The beautiful kitchen equipment, because every morning, 3 meals a day, at 6 a.m. every morning, they are being fed. And that we're very proud of. The churches that Room in that we're in partnership with provide the food for the 3 meals. Over 50 churches are involved in providing the foods that we have. Thank you all so very much again.
Thank you. And council, if you have any questions, we are happy to take those.
Thank you very much. I'll testify firsthand, just because you do not need a hospital bed does not mean you do not need a bed. So thank you for providing that for people that don't have that available to them. Councilman Swearingen?
Yes, sir. I appreciate Bishop Williamson for being present. I was there on board during the ribbon cutting of Room in the Inn. It is a phenomenal place. Those who don't have any homing after leaving the hospitals is there for their families so that everyone can continue to be united. The facilities are absolutely wonderful. I thank Housing Community Development. I thank Councilwoman Cheyenne Johnson for her partnership with this effort. And I would like to employ us to continue to support this edifice, because it is destined to be not only just a ministry, but something that's needed within the city of Memphis. Thank you very kindly, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Easter Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Bishop, for bringing here and bringing that presentation. And Director Cash, my questions are more kind of just logistical for the citizens when they get to the recuperative care. How long do they stay? What happens when they leave? And what's the ongoing support plan for this?
I think Reverend Lisa Anderson
I don't know if she's on.
She's on, but they have holistic 24-hour care, and until they are able to leave and get a job in housing and on their own, they remain with us. Because of our relationship with Micah, screening them and then beginning them to us, the recuperative care staff run by Room in the Inn make sure they're independent, they have housing, they have jobs, and they're able to be on their own. We have some cases that we'd love to share with you about the success of placement. They come, they've been treated, and all that is needed, and a job found, and housing, and now they're not in the street. In a sense, they're back on their feet, going forward, independent, because of the care that they received.
So how will it, since this is only $1 million for 1 year, how will this continue?
So if I may, Councilwoman, so these are for renovations that have already been made graciously by Chris Woods, knowing that he would be reimbursed. And so these renovations are complete. They were just the overrun, so there shouldn't be, aside from a maintenance overtime.
So these are just renovations, it's
Yeah.
not for the actual care.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So where does that funding come from?
That's separate funding that,
Okay, that they're doing
in the end,
on their own?
organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you would, Mr. Chairman, I'd like for Chris Woods to come and share. He's committed to the project and has extended himself beyond, shall I say, normal boundaries. Most people, as soon as they finish in 30 days, they want to be paid in full. I just said to him, let us share with the city the success we've had because of what's happened, and people who are being helped and sheltered now 24 hours to explain to you about his commitment to the project and the additional cost. We come to ask for the $1 million today so he can be paid in full.
Mr. Woods, if you'd like to share a few words, you're certainly welcome to. We have 2 more council members in the queue, but if you'd like a moment just to add to what's already been said.
Well, I'm not as great as the bishop says. I'm just a full country boy that knows how to build things. So, and I am Chris Woods Construction Company. We were fortunate enough to be a member of the team that took over a unoccupied, half-constructed building and finished it up into a facility state of the art that takes care of our homeless, which is a special deal for me, and I'm sure I won't bore you with those deals. And of course, like the bishop says, it's managed by the Room in the Inn with conjunction with the church. And I don't know if any of y'all have been over there, but I really invite you to go over there and see what facilities like this should be. This is a model facility if any of y'all have been there. It's really a transformation. And we greatly appreciate the help that both branches of government have given us to finish this, to get the job to where it is. And in order for us to complete our financial obligations, we're just urge each of y'all to support Collins Chapel.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilman Jones?
Thank you. Bishop Williamson mentioned cost overruns. What are those cost overruns? That's my first question. Second question is, there was an allocation during the CARES Act. How much was that? And then what's the total cost of this facility?
So I can respond to probably 1.5 of your questions, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Woods and Bishop to talk about the overrun. So the CARES Act, we funded about $750,000 initially on the facility. I will say, Councilman Morgan, to your earlier question about future plan funding, Ms. Pittman has advised that they are planning what they have requested $3 million, I think, additional from Steve Cohen's office, and it's been it's in the budget request, and that will be for phase 3 of the project, which is the parking lot and some exterior improvements. Of course, that phase is not as crucial as the interior space to get it livable and habitable. And then Mr. Woods or Bishop, if either one of y'all just want to talk about the overruns, the type of activity that was, that'd be great.
Well, I'd never like to call it overruns naturally. What we call it is unanticipated cost. And when we took over the building, somebody else, another contractor had been in the building, had procured a lot of the material. And we were under the assumption that most of the material was there for the project. And you know, these unanticipated costs did cause our shortfall. And then we ran into some code problems. The original building was set up as a hospital, so when we changed the use of it, we had different codes to address. We renovated the building during an international pandemic, which is always a challenge, as everybody knows. And then as we were building it, we uncovered numerous electrical mechanical, heat and air, and plumbing issues. And that's where the majority of the cost came from. It's always unfortunate. You don't like it, but it's there.
Thank you, Council. Any other questions, Councilman?
So 750, 1 million. What's the total cost of the project?
The total cost of the project was 2.2 million, and we have received 1.22 million of funding from the Shelby County and City. So, which is why we're asking for the million.
Okay, so if this million plus the 750 that we've already approved, that's 1.75 million of the 2.2 million total cost of the facility. Or am I missing something here?
Well, the 750 that you approved wasn't full construction cost. So of that 750 that the city approved, construction cost to Chris Wood's construction was 660,000. The remainder of that 750,000 was soft costs that went to architectural fees.
And we always, with the two funding entities, the city and the county, it was an excellent partnership. We also gave to Room and Inn so they could be fully operational once the building was complete. And that's the good news. They are now fully operational. So if for the cost overrun, in order to make sure the building could be occupied and to get the certificate of occupancy, I continue to say that Chris Wood's construction, do it all so we can get in a timely manner and to start the services to our homeless. And now, with 24-hour care and holistic, we have the most unique homeless ministry in the nation. And I'm sure in Tennessee, there are room in the inns in Jackson and in Nashville, but none have 24-hour holistic care as we do here in Memphis. That's why I've come to thank you and the mayor and the county for doing this in such a wonderful way, and to thank this company, Chris Wood, for getting it done. Kevin, were there any other outstanding needs that need to be addressed? One thing, this 1 million, we won't be back. Once you help us pay off this wonderful company, we're looking to other sources to continue to expand and enhance the project.
Well, what my concern is that at 750, the total project was 2.2 million. At 750,000, the city contributed 34% of it. If we add another million, the city would contribute 79.5 of it. So this is pretty much a city business, a city building. If 80% of the cost is coming from the city of Memphis.
Yeah, I think, Councilman, I see where you're coming from. I do think it can be viewed as a city asset, not physical asset in that way. But we do think it's important. It's an important asset to our community. When the pandemic hit, we were struck with individuals who were unsheltered and had a lot of just health challenges on figuring out how to house people, how to make sure people were tested, and how to keep people separate. And so I hate to say that it presented an opportunity, but it did give us a way to solve a problem. And so we think it is that important. As Bishop said, we don't anticipate coming back for additional funding for the building or recurring costs, maintenance costs, that sort of thing. And so in that way, it wouldn't be the city's responsibility. There certainly may be future partnership opportunities down the line, but that's what we are, that's the way we're looking at it, in terms of just it being an asset, a really important project for our city, one that we don't have, one that individuals don't have a place to go. And so that's why we're requesting these funds today.
Well, with that being the case, though, I would say that if the city is making such a significant investment, we need to make sure that we have some recurring investment in it to make sure that it's a success. If you're saying that this is a necessary project that we have to have, it would be wasteful for us to commit the majority of the funding from a construction standpoint, but then not commit to funding it down the road. And so I would want to hear what's our plan, and this is a need that's not going away.
Right.
What's going to be our commitment for making sure that this is as successful and it's continuing to address this need going forward?
So one thing I can share is we've got emergency solutions grant funding. We get it annually. This year we got much more because of the pandemic. This year we got a total, I think, of about $8 million. It's for homeless and special needs populations. We generally will fund room in the end or kind of our known service providers who assist individuals who are homeless or individuals who have special needs. And so to that point, that would be a consistent source of funding. It wouldn't be the $8 million. I think we normally get a little bit less than $1 million each year in a regular non-pandemic year, but that could potentially be a source of funding. It is competitive. The church would have to apply each year for it, but that could be a way to make sure that we're not just investing all this money on the front end and then sort of leaving them high and dry to figure it out the next couple of years.
Well, I appreciate that, Ms. Cash, but I think that the city should, in conjunction with the church and rooms at the end, from a financial standpoint, we are partnering with this. And I think that there needs to be greater participation in the city, from the city. If we're making such a significant investment, there should be a commitment from the city to make sure that this is an ongoing project in need. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Let me first let it be noted that before the Collins Chapel came and joined into partnership, they had invested $2.1 million in the building already. So the project is far worth more than that 1.7. It's probably closer to a $5 million operation, but the church has already committed. I want you to be mindful of the fact that how we started this partnership with Room in the End was because of a great need that the city was encountering dealing with the homeless population. It was close to $450,000 a month that was being spent on your various hotels. Unfortunately, it appears to me that those same needs will be right back out there with us again with the dilemma of the pandemic that we're about to go into. So that will be an ongoing use of the facility. The Collins Chapel is a structural concern, making sure the facility is sound and meets the physical needs of a building for Room in the End. I'm certain that Collins Chapel and Room in the End, with their partnership, will make certain that this particular service for the homeless population will continue into the future. Today, I think we're mainly concerned about getting the contractor. I mean, we ran into situations when I was overseeing and looking at the project overtime. I mean, COVID stopped people from working at different times when, nobody could go to work. People had quarantines, individuals. I mean, there was a lot of different issues that had to be addressed that they just not talking about. It seems like once you get past the crisis, you're just so happy you forget it. But there was a lot of day-to-day things that occurred that actually caused this overrun. We had increase in supplies and material. We started one day with one cost for an elevator, then the next week or something we were told was costing a totally different amount. So they did run into some issues in regards to how that cost got up there. We were just extremely blessed that the contractor, Mr. Woods, was kind enough to say, these individuals need help. The need is so great, I will continue with the process and will not stop it. So I think it's definitely going to be an ongoing effort. I've ran into people in the community who told me how proud they are of that facility, not just because they were actually born there, they went there for some type of medical procedure they had to get done, but because the hospital is still meeting the needs of the community and helping individuals, we even have some small homeless groups coming together, and they call me and want to know, how did you get it going? We want to do something similar to that in our neighborhood. People always think that a homeless shelter has to have a particular look. This shelter doesn't have it. They look like a little hotel, and they don't call their participants homeless people. They're guests. They're treated. They're given the highest level of respect. And that's what we want to do, and encourage other people throughout the city to do the same thing for other individuals that they want to assist. So I'm just saying, I'm asking for your support on this particular item. I am so grateful to the contractors for continuing to work with the project, but I'm just asking for your support. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from council members? Councilman Ford, and then we'll go to a break.
I'm going to be very brief. Thank you all. Thank the contractors. Okay. Bishop, I want to thank you at CME Church. Very good project. I'm glad it's back. And the only thing that I can say, I was born at Collins Chapel. So it's back. And I appreciate y'all working to get it back together and all of you all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all very much for the information presentation. And we're going to go to a scheduled break. It is 5:05 now. We'll reconvene at 5:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Present.
Thanks, man.
My pleasure. All right. This budget committee is reconvened, and yes, if you feel comfortable presenting without a mask, so we can all hear you clearly. And as long as that button is, it's green, just speaking the mic so the people that are online can hear you as well. If you'll introduce yourself, and the floor is yours to present.
Thank you. My name is Reginald Coopwood. I'm the president and CEO of Regional One Health here in Memphis. And thank you for the opportunity to come before this body to discuss the allocation that the mayor's office has presented in the original package. And we want to talk a little bit about what has driven the need. The impetus is around the trauma service. We are the level 1 trauma center for Memphis, Shelby County, West Tennessee, and the Mid-South. And our organization is primarily funded. We get assistance from the county because we're an asset of the county government. And we also get funding from Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee and at the federal level. Up until last fiscal year, which would be the year really prior to COVID, we were managing the trauma of this region without going on diversion. So diversion means when we are overcrowded, meaning if all 4 of the operating rooms that we staff 24 hours a day are operating all at the same time, or our critical care assessment area where the trauma patients come in for evaluation are over capacity, and accepting one more patient would become a danger to that patient versus going somewhere else. And so those are our criteria, and we do everything we can to minimize the chance for going on diversion. And so when we go on diversion, patients are sent to Baptist facilities, Methodist facilities, and St. Francis facilities, which, for the record, I want to say are very fine facilities, but they are not staffed and prepared for trauma. So, it's not that they give bad care, it's where you have the people ready available to take care of someone with a major car accident or a shooting or some other type of injury. And so we try to manage all the trauma, and they'll focus a lot on the cardiac events or the other medical emergencies that happen in the community. During the year of COVID, we saw a significant increase in our number of diversion hours. And what that does is it pushes more patients out into the community than we like. It also is part of, interrupts the EMS system. And this is what kind of brought the attention of Mayor Strickland's office, was the amount of wait times in not only our emergency room, but other emergency rooms, and what that was doing to the trauma system for Memphis and Shelby County. So if we were in FY20, we had 295 hours of diversion over the 12 months. In the fiscal year that ended in June, we had 3,600 diversion hours. So it's just a more than a 11 times increase in the amount of diversion hours. So we dug deep to figure out what was driving this. We had multiple conversations with Mayor Strickland and his team, and there's 3 major drivers. One was due to staffing, and everyone has had difficulty in staffing their organizations. We've had approximately 21 beds closed during that month when the diversion hours went up. And that was one reason for the increased diversion hours, is getting nurses in to be able to staff those beds and do it safely. The other was there's been an increase in the amount of trauma in our community, both blunt trauma from vehicular accidents as well as increase in penetrating trauma as we hear on the news. And there has been a significant increase in that number as well. And then also the acuity of the trauma, the level of injury of the trauma patients has gone up over the same period of time, which causes more resources to be used. And so the conversation with the mayor's office was, how do we get those 21 beds open so that we can reduce those hours from a capacity standpoint? And he led a conversation with the county and some representatives from the state to try to get all divisions of government to participate in the solution. And the question they asked was, what would it get to get those 21 beds staffed again, and the cost. And so the staffing, and just kind of give you an understanding, a nurse's salary is about $40 an hour, $30 to $40 an hour. We're paying staffing companies up to $130 an hour for nurses right now because of the, and everyone is, in order to get nurses in from across the country, because our nurses are leaving and we're paying extra for nurses to come back in. So the question was, what would it take to get the unit back staffed, and for and you contract with these entities for 13-week shifts or 13-week segments of time, and what the calculation is over what we've already budgeted. So we budgeted the $35 to $40 an hour, which is part of our annual budget. But what would it take to get those beds open? And it came to about $3.6 million per 13-week time period. And and that's where the $3 million recommendation came, was to let's get the first 3 months covered and continue to talk with the state as well as the county to continue to look at this needs to go for future 13 week periods. But with the rise in cases of COVID, it's going to go more than 3 months. And so based on that kind of $3.6 million for getting the unit open, that's where the $3 million. So we've already hired 8 premium agency staff and able to reopen 5 beds on this coming Monday. And based on getting another 41 additional nurses currently planned to start over the next month, we feel we'll reopen the other 16 beds that are closed by the end of August. And that's when that 13-week period would start. And so these dollars are dollars that the mayor's office felt was important to help do the part to help stabilize the trauma system in this community by increasing the capacity so that we'll be able to handle the trauma and to be able to give the individuals, you and I, who travel up and down these streets, the best opportunity for getting the high level of care that a trauma center provides. I will pause there to answer any questions. There's more information in the original packet that we shared with the mayor's office initially, but I know our time is limited, so I'd rather answer questions than drone on.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we got a few council members in the queue. I'll start off. Do y'all do any elective surgeries, or is it entirely trauma and emergency?
No, we do elective surgeries in multiple areas, urology, cancer surgery. So yes, we are in the business of doing elective surgery as well.
And I guess with the current COVID levels and kind of the crunch, how close are y'all to having to suspend again, or potentially, and maybe this is an internal conversation, not to be had here, but but I guess how close are we to that edge again?
It's closer than we like, just because the numbers continue to go up for individuals who are admitted in the hospital, who need, with COVID, that need to be admitted, and those in the ICU. Where for our Science Hospital, I think we're up to 40-some patients who were 2 months ago when we first started having this conversation, we had like 2 or 3 in the hospital. And it has just exponentially grown for us and all the other hospitals in the community.
Frank, I know a lot of times what a hospital and the doctors would say is elective to the patient who has cancer, it doesn't feel like an elective surgery.
Absolutely.
And many times they're sitting on the sidelines, suffering and waiting in doubt, not knowing when they're going to be able to get the surgery that they need. Okay. I'll hold off and see where we are in time. We'll go to Councilman Jones first, then Warren, then Easter Thomas.
Welcome, Dr. Coopwood. Good afternoon. Under normal circumstances, this would be something that I would object to from the standpoint that Memphis pays Shelby County taxes and Shelby County government oversees and operates the med. But I know that these are not ordinary circumstances, and I recognize that, God forbid, if I'm in a tragic car accident, I'd have to go to the med. But if a COVID patient is there, or taking up the rooms at Baptist, then, that's a situation that I wouldn't want to be in personally. And if I don't want it for myself, I shouldn't want it for any other Memphian or Shelby County for that matter. One question that I have, and it's based upon a news report that I heard this morning, is that we are getting patients, and I don't know if they are coming to the med per se, but we're getting patients from other jurisdictions, maybe as far as Louisiana. I don't know if that's the case for the med, but I recall some years ago, this is before your tenure at the med, that a big issue here in Memphis and Shelby County was uncompensated care from particularly those individuals who live outside of Tennessee and come for services here. Is that still an issue? Is there a similar ask for surrounding states to essentially say, we have treated a number of, if this is the case, we've treated a number of residents of your state, and based upon these extraordinary circumstances, we have what would be an extraordinary ask of you to help fund some of the operations as it relates to COVID and then the trauma cases that we see. So I'd like if you could respond to that, please.
So prior to me arriving, which is now 11 years, there were issues with Arkansas and Mississippi around their support of the regional One Health, the regional medical center. At the time, prior to me getting here, arrangements were worked out with both Mississippi and Arkansas, and they have substantially increased their support over the period of time. So the issue that was relevant in 2008, 2009, for under normal circumstances, working for those states and the individuals that we take care of, their level of support has been steady and I think adequate for what we're taking care of. And in this period of time, we have not taken this ask outside the state of Tennessee, which I think is a conversation that we'd be willing to have with those states in this period of time because of the extraordinary growth in both COVID numbers and in the management of trauma for Eastern Arkansas and Northern Mississippi. We've received some of those calls outside of the state in Louisiana, and we're not accepting COVID patients from those areas because of the fact that we're trying to preserve as much capacity as we can because we're the sole provider of trauma and burns for this community. So we are not accepting, to my knowledge, we have not accepted anyone from states that are outside of our normal catchment area.
Thank you. And then the last thing, I don't know what type of conversations have taken place, and hopefully the governor's on speed dial. I don't know what would have to be
the circumstances to open back up what used to be the commercial appeal. So if you can provide any insight to us on that.
I don't have any insight on that, and I think that staffing would be a continued problem there, and that was kind of the issue the last time that we had it fully fitted for COVID expansion. We couldn't find staffing in our acute care hospitals and continued to be a problem, and to consider opening that facility was going to put more strain on area staffing as well. So even if they brought the cots and everything back, it would still be difficult to staff it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who is the normal, or which groups are the normal funding bodies for Regional 1 Trauma Center?
So the county is, because we're an asset of the county provides funding for, as part of our operational budget. We provide approximately $60 to $80 million of uncompensated care for indigent of Shelby County, as well as the prisoners, and the county gives us currently about $30 million to offset some of those losses. We've also requested of the county for some capital dollars, which they have, the commission has appropriated about $7.5 million for capital needs in the organization. We also receive funds through TennCare from the state of Tennessee and DISH and Essential Access dollars, and we have a uncompensated care fund that we are able to pull down from the federal government to help with the offset the cost of uncompensated care, as well as what we talked about from the trauma funds in both Mississippi and Arkansas.
And have we received, or are you planning on receiving any ARPA funds in addition from the county or from the state or from Mississippi or Arkansas? Where are we as far as our ask for those entities for their ARPA funds?
Mr. McGowan has pulled together a group from the county and the state to have conversations. We have preliminary conversations for the county and the state to understand the problem and to see if there's the ability to pull down funds from those entities. From my understanding, the $7.5 million of capital dollars that the county commission awarded to us this year were ARPA funds, and we have not received any ARPA funds from the state, but I think that's part of the ask that CAO McGowan has of the state as we move forward. They had 1 or 2 meetings. I was out of town when the meeting happened, but the state was part of the conversation, but we have not gotten a firm yes or no from them as yet.
Have we had any response from Mississippi or Arkansas?
They have not been brought into that conversation regarding their ARPA funds, no.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Chief Ford, quick question. So this request is split over 2 years, $2 million in the first year, $1 million in the third. Is that simply because this 13-week period is going to straddle kind of that timeline of the second? Would it span the calendar year, or why would we split the money up if it's a 13-week period? And I'm looking back at the presentation from last Tuesday, if it's been updated.
I'm not sure. I do see where we have 2 million into the FY22 and FY23, but if we're talking about a 13-week period, I may have to go back, and I'm sorry, Chief McGowan is out of town, and so I don't have a quick answer for that, but I will follow up and get that response back to you, Councilman.
Okay, good to know about it, especially with y'all's cash flow and the need. All right, that just seemed curious. Any other comments or questions from council members? I see none. Thank you so much for the work you do and all the effort and care you've put into putting our community back together on so many occasions. So can't thank you enough. And wonderful to have you in front of the city council, I think, for the first time since I've been here.
And thank you for your consideration of this request.
My pleasure. All right, so we're going to go on to the next presentation, which is Micro Memphis Fresh Market Program. Yes, and if you will just introduce yourself and your position within the organization, then the floor is yours for presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Matthews, and I'm the president of Southeast Regional Development Corporation. I work with Mr. J.W. Gibson, and we're working to revitalize South Memphis in a very thoughtful and comprehensive way. And so I want to thank you for the opportunity today to do this presentation to share more about our Micro Memphis Cooperative Fresh Program concept. So doing some investigative work, we talked to residents in the community and learned that access to really quality, healthy food was lacking. And they needed some options that was within close proximity because many of them may not have transportation that's reliable to get further away to grocery stores that's outside of their community. So the concept is something that's been done throughout the country. I've helped myself implement it in Houston, Texas, where I've relocated from to come here to do the work. But also there's some great models in Vermont and Manhattan that I was a part of as well. And so I said, well, a micro grocery store would be really awesome because it's local. And then the concept, which makes this very unique compared to other initiatives, is that residents get to buy into the cooperative and they run it. So it's a resident-led initiative, which ensures sustainability. But most importantly, we can work with local producers, which I've already started bringing mid-sized farmers and distributors together to bring in really healthy food for the residents on a consistent basis. So you're probably thinking, like, what is a food co-op? And basically, it's a grocery store that's small in size and it's ran by the people for the people, and they get to drive everything from who gets hired, what type of food is sold, and how much it goes out the door for. Our process is really unique because we're going to train those residents into the co-op model. And so they'll learn everything they need to know to make sure that these micro grocery stores within their community is successful. We also plan to educate, and I have a phenomenal community engagement manager behind me, Ms. Kurt, who's going to do the outreach to talk to them about this initiative, but also why it's important to eat healthy food so we can improve their health. Is we really are tackling this from a comprehensive approach. It's not just about getting the food in the community, but helping the residents understand why it's important to eat in a healthy way and why it's important to patronize that store. Also, we want them to tell us. I did a market analysis on South Memphis and identified 3 nodes where there were high concentrations of elderly population and young kids. So I said to myself, well, those would be great locations, but I would like to talk to the residents to see what would be a good location for them. So they get to help in that process as well. And we plan to hire and train from the community. People that live there get to work there. And most importantly, we will have nutritional classes monthly to help not only encourage them to eat healthy, but understand the type of offerings from that store. So now that we talked about our process, how much is this going to cost? And one micro grocery store is $395,155. And I had the breakdown for you so you can see where those funds are being allocated. To date, I've fundraised for 3 micro grocery stores for South Memphis. And so we wanted to do a public-private partnership, and that's why we came to the city for some assistance with that. So on the next 2 slides, you will see what the micro grocery store looks like. I wanted to do something that would not take a very long time. And if the residents wanted to move the location, they have the option or make it a permanent location. So the modular, prefabricated model is something I've used in previous projects before, and I thought this would be a great fit. And inside the grocery store, it can be anywhere between 1,200 to 500 square feet. And as you can see in that model, everything that can fit inside that space. And on the next slide, we can either do a modern makeup or a more traditional look for the neighborhood based on what the residents feel fits within the architecture of their community. So I want to put more emphasis again on the importance of the cooperative structure. We want to make sure that there's a shared vision and mission with all the members who want to take a leadership role in this particular mini grocery store initiative. I've done the legwork to establish that supply chain for them. I have a table of producers already and distributors. We meet monthly on the 4th of every month to talk about what this looks like. And then once we establish the physical infrastructure, we'll bring those leaders, resident leaders, into those conversations. Also, we want to teach the residents about the legal structure of a co-op and that it's a flat management structure. So they have a say in what happens in their community, which is so vital to comprehensive development. And then we're going to train everyone so we'll have effective operations and they'll be able to sustain this for the long term. Next slide, please. So there are 3 really cool co-ops across the nation. I gave you examples for. You can definitely look them up if you want more detail, but each one is different. And the reason why it's different is because, like I said, the residents get to design the co-op for their needs. And one that I thought was really cool was the Fairbanks, Alaska. They worked with local fishermen and producers, but what was really cool is that any family that came in to purchase food, the kids got a free banana. And so the kids will always want to go back because they were getting free fresh fruits. One that I've personally been to myself is the one out of Manhattan. And they were very intentional to make sure that everyone that worked in that particular co-op actually lived in that community. And if they dedicated, either they can get paid a salary or volunteer. And if they volunteer, they get 20% off of the grocery bill. So you can really customize this to help the residents, but also give them the autonomy to make the decisions needed for this to be successful. I will stop there. I know I gave you a lot of information.
Yeah, this is incredible. Thank you. Co-ops, this is an impressive idea. They tend to rise and fall with the level of commitment of the people that are buying into it together. Yeah. And so, wishing the best for you. We got at least Councilman Carlisle in the queue. I think there are going to be some others.
I'll go ahead and say this now, since we're not voting. I was going to, Southeast Regional Development Corporation is an investment partner of mine in a development that's not going to have any bearing. So I'm not going to recuse myself, but I wanted to disclose that so everybody is aware of it. It's out there in the public anyway, but just for the sake of being on the record with it. So I'm looking at your cost breakdown. This is year one startup capital, $395, and that's the ask of the ARPA dollars as well. So will SRDC have any, other than your salary and your role, what is their investment into this property outside of the city's investment?
Sure, we have a significant $750,000 dedicated to it. We have several entities and individuals that's providing in-kind services. I also have put in a request with the USDA. And so I've been really working very hard the last several months to allocate funds to make sure this is a success, because we know that South Memphis is a food desert and we cannot sit back and just hope it gets better. We have to do something.
Sure. No, look, the problem is there. I mean, Councilwoman Thomas touched on it last week, and I'm hoping she'll weigh in here too. But I get it. I'm just trying to understand. I'm supportive theoretically. This is just kind of the general due diligence of it all. Mm-hmm. So what's an example of like some of the in-kind things that you guys are going to receive? Are they more like shelving and some stuff like that and POP, or is this ongoing services, maintenance, janitorial? What's that look like? Yeah.
So it's a combination of training, actual contribution of food goods, as well as equipment for the store.
Okay, cool.
And I also have an architect on board. She's providing pro bono services for me.
And you said you're at SRDC, so that's your employer, and you'll stay there. So you'll oversee this kind of as the asset manager. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You touched on the services. And Councilman Morgan just talked about the kind of rise and fall with the buy-in. A part of that $750,000, I guess, is more to the sustainable. So this is your capital injection along with your initial investment and some sustainable, because I want to make sure that it doesn't fail on year one, that it's got sustainable capital.
Sure. And so this is not a standalone project for South Memphis. It goes into our total comprehensive development approach that we plan to do there. So I have partnerships with other, Joey Bland, he has a agriculture incubator that he plans to put there. So I've already started conversations on how we can tie in those residents for training. How can we use our community manager to come and make sure that we're an active presence and get that buy-in and recruit those members for the co-op.
Got it. All right, thank you. That's very helpful. I'm, like Councilman Morgan, very intrigued. I know that Commissioner Gibson is focused on the South. And you've got to pilot these things, improve them before you can kind of roll them out in a broad thing. But food deserts is something that we don't often talk about from the dais. It's been mentioned, but it goes along with sustainable neighborhoods. You talked to Rashawn Austin at the Works, and you talk about building these neighborhoods back. When Councilwoman Easter Thomas kind of showed me on a map, like where the hole is in her district, I mean, it's kind of heart-wrenching. So I'll be cheering you on in supporting this. I am curious to see, though, if we couldn't run a dual pilot program up where she is in the Fraser area, because listening to her last week, there seems to be an immediate need like right now. So I'm curious to see what any expansion of this could look like, but I'll shut up and let her talk if she has anything she wants to add to that.
Do you want to follow that directly, or we can go? Okay, Councilman Easter Thomas.
Thank you for giving the presentation. And in response to Councilman Carlisle, I did last Tuesday, sorry y'all, this is Memphis, did last Tuesday ask about the mirroring of that project, but was told that with the USDA grant, that's where the other funds would come from. Now, if the city was able to put more money to mirror that project on the north side, then that may be possible, but did get back from the SRDC that it was only possible through those USDA, through the rest of that $750,000 funds. So if the city would do $1 million for the north side, then that would be comparable to that project.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson?
Yes, I just have some general questions. Has a location been determined for this facility? What's the location?
So we have 3 tentatives, but we are not making that in stone because we want the residents to let us know if that's accurate. Like, will that be feasible for them? Every approach I've ever taken in the work I do is that I don't come into a community and tell them what they need to have. I sit down and listen to them to see what it is that they need, because the people that's closest to the pain has the best solutions. And so I'm not going to set those locations in stone right now, because it may definitely change once we finish having our focus groups.
When you look at the staff, I'm assuming that's salary for everyone. How many employees you think?
So there'll be a general manager for 3 of the micro grocery stores. And
so this is 3 we're talking about?
Yeah, we're implementing 3 based on the high need in South Memphis.
Okay.
And so that covers 1 total grocery store, but the salary for that one would be 1 general manager and then the part-time staff that's needed or full-time based on the community's needs.
So when you say manager and employees, how many employees?
It could be anywhere from 2 to 4. And then we have our producers. Like I said, they've already come to the table to say that they're willing to help out because they want to see this change as well. And when I say producers, I mean farmers.
Okay. How soon could you start this project?
Our goal is to start construction in October, November at the latest.
Is this like a building? Is it already prefab? What type of building are we talking about?
It is a modular building.
Okay.
And for those that want a more traditional facade, that'll take a little longer to put that on the outside, but the whole building itself will be modular.
Okay. I don't see where you have like insurance and utilities. Where is that going to be?
That was wrapped up into the building cost, but I have a detailed budget I can share with you all if you would like to see that.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious about some additional costs that you might run into, but this is really just to help you get 3.
Yes, ma'am, because I've done a lot of the fundraising before, so this is just a piece of the whole.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. I think we need to be supportive of North Memphis and try to get a grocery store over there. But find a way. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Our financial officer will be.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Thorne.
Thank you. All right. Briefly, Councilman Carlisle.
Yeah, I just have one more question you're shepherding in, you're receiving a USDA grant, and that's the 750, or is the SRDC putting up its own capital?
We're putting some capital into that as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And what's that level?
Right now it's up to 50,000 and then per store.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from council members? All right. Seeing none, we appreciate your time and presentation.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
You too. Thank you. Up next is Youth Services Initiatives. All right, if you'll introduce yourself for the people that may be watching from home.
Okay.
And then the floor is yours to present.
My name is Ike Griffiths. I'm Special Assistant for Youth Services under Mayor Jim Strickland.
When you're ready, sir.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all so very much for giving me this opportunity to come in front of you to talk about the Memphis Office of Youth Services. The first program I would like to talk to you about is I Am Included. This is a program that we established about 2 years ago to give our young people with special needs an opportunity to be engaged in our program with Memphis Office of Youth Services. We really wanted to make sure that we give all our young people with disabilities the same opportunity that we do with our typical students. So right now we are dealing with young people that are deaf and hard of hearing, blind and visually impaired, autism, and we're getting ready to introduce Down syndrome and low functioning, high functioning individuals. In this program, as of right now, we have about 80 students, but we really want to make sure that we can include more students in this process. What you see now, we are asking for 5 additional participants added to each of the 6 areas of focus for 3 additional years. This is to assist students with disabilities to create post-secondary plans and assist in developing hard and soft skilled needs to have gainful employment. The services include aids and individual support, helping youth to have a sense of belonging by providing a technical, educational, and moral support by helping them to become more financially independent. With our employee program, I'm happy to announce that under this administration, we have increased some employment by 100%. Prior to this administration, it was 1,000 students that we served. Now we are up to 2,000. What we're asking here now is to provide additional funding for us to get more students employed over the summer program. Each December, ladies and gentlemen, we have a total between 8,000 and 10,000 students who register for 2,000 jobs. And if you probably know that I've been doing different fundraisers like Joy, J-O-Y, Just One Youth. We had a telethon this year with the support of Fox 13 and SCS television station to gain more employment for our young people. We also have had Cummins to donate $60,000, $20,000 for the next 3 years to go towards this summer program. So we really want to make sure that we can increase the number of young people that we serve here in the city by a lot more than 2,000. Right now, we are trying to get that number up to 2,050 for the next 3 years. Hopefully we can get that in order for us to help them with hard and soft skill training, but most of all, giving our young people an opportunity to venture out into different areas of employment that we have in our city, to give our young people an opportunity to look at other things other than our fast food restaurants. We want to look at Fortune 500 companies, hospitals, banking, to give our young people another choice of doing something positive when they're not in school. Our last program that I would like to talk about is the Memphis Ambassadors Program. Right now, we have about 440 to 500 students right now. We want to increase that number. This is our year-round program. This program has been very, very successful. We have internships here with the city of Memphis that give our young people an opportunity to see what city government looks like. We also have a program to develop hard and soft skill training, analytical thinking, emotional management, community service, and an increase in educational achievement goals. We really want to push as much as we possibly can to our young people the value of getting a high school education. And we also want to provide those same opportunities for those students that may want to go into different careers. In order for us to do that, we want to reach as many students as we possibly can under the Memphis Office of Youth Services MAP program. We have created a program called the Ambassadors Program where we have 8th grade students who are underachieving academically. We are helping those young students to gain a grade point average of at least 2.5 in order for them to transition into our program. Our MAP ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, are paid based on their GPA. I'm not paying a child 2.0 money when I have a 4.0 student. If you want 4.0 money, you got to study hard to get there. So these are things that we want to put into place to give them real world situations in order for them to be successful in everyday life. This year-round program includes college visits, and also budgeting classes. Financial literacy is very, very important in this program. So we want to make sure that we can touch as many students as we possibly can by increasing the number of students that we serve under this program.
Any questions from council members? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, and welcome. Ms. Griffin, good to see you.
Good to see you.
My question would be, if we can have for Tuesday, I see these numbers here. What would be helpful is what we already budgeted and see how much this is on top of what we provided in the general fund.
Okay.
For each of the programs.
Each one. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Councilwoman Easter Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Director Griffiths, I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. I come across children every day involved in all of these programs, especially the I'm included with our functional skills students at our school, and it's really helpful. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I hope that we can support this to be able to expand it, but I would like to see the information that Councilman Jones asked for as well. But thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we could see the information, see where the current program limits are at 100 and 1750 and 500, but making sure that we're getting there every year, that those are actually, that might be the program limit, but that's also the number of kids we're serving. Because one of the things that goes back to a question that Councilwoman Robinson asked earlier, it is about the dollar amount per student or per young
student per year.
Yeah, per student per year per young adult that's helped with this. And so with the first I'm included, $200,000 for 30 students, it comes out to be about $6,700 per student.
6722.
Yes, about 6,700. And if you want to get technical, the next one is 3,173 and 30. I can't read my handwriting past that. And then the last program is 2,625. And for programs that are already running, that seems expensive. As I've looked at other nonprofits across the city and what they do, I get it if there's a lot of upstart cost, if there has to be investment in terms of infrastructure. These are programs that are already running, and that the additional cash should be, cheaper per, per person individual being helped. So that would be, I'd want to understand that a little bit better about why the numbers are as high as they are. Versus it was just the other presentation today with the Boys and Girls Club, and they were projecting about $645 per student for their programming. And some of that where they have a lot of infrastructure in place here in the city, but they're going to be starting new campuses. I'd like to see that understand it a little bit more and have a little bit more breakdown and wonder if we couldn't have the same effect or be able to help more students for the same amount of money.
Well, if I could just mention this, some of the costs in this I'm included will be for special equipment we have to have for those different students.
Okay.
Like for Braille and what have you. Also, there's going to be additional staff that we need to support these efforts because that's very important for us to have those individuals that are experts in that area to help us maintain the program and stay within the guidelines for each one of those different areas.
Yeah, and I think that's just a little bit more of the background that I'm asking for, trying to understand. Chief Ford, do you want to follow up on that, or?
Yes, thank you, council members. Those are all very good questions. And here several years ago when we embarked on a plan to aggressively increase the number of students, specifically in the employee program. And I remember that we did do specifically for you a breakdown per cost per student because it does vary depending on the age of the participant, of how many kids you could have in one group as with a supervisor and how many, the older kids can have more kids, the younger need more counselors. So I know we did have that information, and I think it would be easy for us to update it for the current information for you. Those calls.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Councilman Carla?
Thank you. Yeah, Councilman Morgan answered or asked a lot of the questions I understand with special needs, like I get that. And honestly, if you told me it was 8,000, I wouldn't have a bearing on it. I just have to trust it. And obviously you guys have vetted a lot of this, but mine goes back to, and I hear Councilwoman Easter Thomas, she's in the school, she's seeing it more than I am. Mine is more of I'm looking at what you're doing, and it's not that you're not doing it well, but the question is when I see what you're doing, and then when I've got the cost of what Boys and Girls Club is doing, and you guys almost look like you're duplicative, I'm wondering the same thing of what is your competitive strength at the cost you're doing at it versus what they're doing. And so if we're able to put through is higher for them and they're getting the same results, why would we invest in this? And I hear what Chief Ford is saying, this was several years ago. And so, and things in the marketplace change. And I know it sounds like I understand these are people and individuals, but I'm just saying we're looking at making an investment in this, and at $3,100 a student on average, whether it goes up or down, that's still the average number. I'm sure, and I'm just challenging you to help me understand it. Not saying no or that I'm not supportive. I just don't have enough information to understand why the cost is driving the way it is when it seemingly to me and again, it's hard to know everything you do every day on a 4-paragraph bullet point. So I'm happy to spend time with you and understand it. But again, when their cost is so much lower on a per student basis, and they may be able to accomplish almost, maybe not everything, but almost the identical thing, and they may not be. Again, so if you'll just let me know, if you just want to have a half an hour phone call, or I'm happy to come to your office. I'd just like to learn more so I can better understand. So other than that, I echo what my colleagues have said. I appreciate all that you're doing. I'm really happy to hear that Councilman Easter Thomas gets that feedback, and it's glad to know that the money is going to a good spot. So thank you, Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Councilman Jones.
No, Councilwoman Johnson.
Oh, Johnson. I'm sorry, I misheard that. Councilman Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Maybe I missed it, but I don't know if Boys and Girls Club actually told us what the total cost was. What they told us was that they were asking for additional funds, and we don't know if those additional funds cover the entire cost, or is it just a portion, because they get funding from other sources as well. So I think it would be hard to make a comparison between the two agencies unless we knew exactly the total cost for Boys and Girls Club, because we just might be a cherry on the top of the funds they already have.
I agree with that. I'd be happy to rerun the math. It was my understanding that $300,000 was going to take care of one new location per year, and that their target was the same as Craigmont, which is 465 per students per location. So divide 300,000
But no,
by.
but what I'm saying in that case is we really still don't know if that's the total cost. That
Right.
may be all that they're needing, and they may be contributing a large portion of that as well.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know, and that's why I think we may have a disadvantage here if the city doesn't have any other funding source to add to what,
I agree with you.
mhm.
I agree with you. But the thing, I guess my point would be is you may be, and you are right, by the way, there's private dollars, they raise private money, but it's still, what are the city's dollars? Where are the city's dollars most impactful? The fact that Mr. Griffith may not have additional sources is a competitive disadvantage, but it doesn't change the fact that it may not help us impact as many children. But I'm curious.
I mean, it is, I have to say on your, I am included, you're talking about 30 individuals and it's costing 600,000. I mean, that's pretty significant. He said 30, I heard for 30 kids for over a 3-year period. That's pretty high. So I understand, but I just think we need to find total cost. Is that correct? 600,000 for 30 kids?
I think that we can get back with you on that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
That's not right.
All right, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from Councilmember or Chief Ford?
Thank you. I will say on the employee use summer program, actually they get paid.
Right.
For 8 weeks. Is that right?
6 weeks, those college students.
Okay. So there is some, it's the cost of the program offline. Higher budgets, I've actually employed some of them to help me, especially if they're, for fun.
This opportunity, all the college students, you just said that.
Yeah, we have college students also.
That may be another competitive
Yeah.
differentiator that's probably a more solid.
Right. 14 through 22.
Perfect. That's much.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, so we'll go on to the next presentation, which is Community Services Initiatives.
So glad I wasn't in school on Director Griffin's program. I'd be getting the 2.0 money. Good evening, council people. Chairman, are you ready for me or gotcha? Good evening, Ken Moody, Special Assistant to the Mayor. I'll speak to 3 programs under the community service. The first one is our Opportunity Youth, and it is a new initiative. The office currently does not exist. Unlike Director Griffin's program, this program is for ages 16 through 24 that are not working or in school. And the numbers of how many they are vary. We know there's tens of thousands of them. So what we're proposing here begins an opportunity for us to address those tens of thousands. What we are proposing is 80 participants annually, a 5-day-a-week session, Monday through Friday from 9 to 2 p.m. We're developing a curriculum for them. It would be in a classroom setting. We currently, right now, we'll have it over at 555 Bill office where we do our reentry program. We'll conduct it there. What we're proposing too is that we will do a July through November, take December off, and we'll come back January through May, which would cover our fiscal year. We're proposing to have 8 individuals start, and every 30 days we'll roll those 8 out and bring in a new 8. We are asking that the council consider us to give these individuals a stipend. They're going to be, again, they're not working, they're not in school. We know they contribute to our crime. So we're proposing that we give those individuals a weekly stipend of $250, or we may look at giving them a bi-weekly stipend of $500, again, to encourage them to stay the course, go through the program. We're also asking that we help provide them with transportation assistance. We know some of them may not have transportation, so we're going to be working with MATA, Uber, and Lyft to make sure if there's any transportation barriers that they have, we address those as well too. We're going to have a staff of 3 individuals. We're proposing a staff of 3 individuals. There'll be a facilitator, and that person will conduct a curriculum, I guess sort of like a teacher would for those 30 days. We're going to have a case manager. That person will serve in the role as a guidance counselor, because what we want is for these individuals to tell us what career path they want. It may be trade school, it may be a job, it may be community college. We're going to make sure they tell us what career path that they want, and we're going to have a case manager / guidance counselor to guide them down their path. That's why we only want to start with 8 kids or 8 individuals, because it's only going to be one case manager, and we think that she can handle 8 at one time without being overwhelmed. And then we're going to have a business developer that's going to go out and find those job opportunities, find those trade school opportunities, find those community college opportunities, so we can make sure, again, we provide that for those individuals. Our feeder system is going to come from, we've had some communications with juvenile court, Shelby County Schools with their truancy office, and Agape, and I'm sure we're all familiar with Agape do with their wraparound services. So we are comfortable that we will have, again, we know there are tens of thousands of them, so finding these individuals won't be hard. And then some of the opportunities that we're going to provide would be TCAT, Excel Center, Ben Hooks Job Corps, Workforce Mid-South, which used to be WIN, and Southwest Community College. Again, we know community college is free. A lot of those trade schools are free as well, too. So we're looking for opportunities where we know that these individuals are interested in, and then some may not even be included on here. We'll let them tell us, what they want. We're going to let this be a program that's driven by our participants, and we direct them down that path they want to go. I think the biggest incentive for us here is, again, the stipends that we're proposing to give them either weekly or bi-weekly. And every 30 days, we'll have a new group coming in. I will say that, too, that if the council does approve this program, it will require me to come back before you ask for 2 new complements, because, again, this office doesn't exist, and we're asking for funding for one of those positions. 2 of those positions we currently have funding for in our existing budget. And that's my opportunity youth presentation.
Any comments or questions from council members? Well,
they're all different programs, council ladies, so if you want specific to this one, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just go through them, and then we'll do questions for the end.
All right. Our next program is our Manhood and Wilds, which is our reentry program. And you'll see a common theme with all 3 programs I'm presenting. They're all 3 reentry connected programs. This program, we're not asking for money to increase our numbers. We're asking for dollars to increase the resources that we provide for them. And currently, we've had our program started in 2016 against the mayor's commitment to reentry. We've had over 700 people come through our program, women and men. Our core focus is driver's license reinstatement, expungement, and jobs. And that's what we focus on. What we're proposing here is that we add an additional resource for our participants. Again, we're looking at doing 80 a year, similar, just like we were with the Opportunity Youth. And what we're asking here is, we already work with companies that hire individuals. Again, all of our individuals have backgrounds. And so some companies will hire them, some won't. We've been able to work with some companies to lessen their background restrictions. And so what we're hoping that this allows us to do is give more incentives to the companies. So what we're going to say to a company is, this person's come through our program, they've got background challenges, they want to get their life back together. We're proposing to pay this individual's salary for 3 months with the company's commitment that at the end of those 3 months, they hire them full time. We're proposing to pay up to $15 an hour, and we're going to ask the company to do the same. And so we have some companies we're already working with, but we're going to be soliciting those companies if you guys know any that may be a good fit. But the commitment we're asking the company is at the end of these 3 months where we pay their salary, that they commit, providing that these are good employees, that they commit to hiring these individuals full time so that they can make a living for themselves. We're also proposing to help these individuals with transportation assistance as well too. If they need ride back and forth to work, then we're proposing to give them a stipend up to a certain amount to make sure they've got transportation assistance. Well, I will say this for our manhood wives. I just want to share a few statistics with you what we have already done. We have provided over 1,800 expungements for our participants, and that is someone can come to our program and they may have 15 or 20 charges, right? And we can't get them all clean, but we may can get about 10 of them clean. And so our team does that, and they've done over 1,800. We've also helped with driver's license system. You guys may remember when the mayor first got in office, he raised private dollars to pay expungement fees. Expungement fees now are waived. And so now what we're doing, we're taking those dollars and helping individuals that come through our program get their driver's license reinstatement. We're paying up to $2,500 to help individuals that come through our program to get their driver's license reinstatement. I want to thank, when Councilwoman Robinson was the chairperson, the council gave $50,000 toward those efforts. And so we've been able to use those dollars as well too. And so we have combined with what the mayor's raised and what you guys have given us, spent close to $100,000 in helping individuals get their license reinstated. And so just wanted to highlight a few things that the team already does. And again, this will be additional resources that we can provide for our participants. And it gives those individuals, I mean, we're going to give them 3 months of salary. We're going to give them transportation assistance. So for 3 months, they can really save their money and be prepared to get on their own feet. Part of our curriculum in our sessions is financial literacy. And actually, Commissioner Ford was here. Commissioner Ford conducts our financial literacy program and class for us, for our program. And Councilwoman Robinson also conducts a class for our women program. And so I want to thank them as well. And then the last program is the Public Service Corps. We're asking for those dollars to partnership with the nonprofit organization Stevie Moore's Freedom from Unnecessary Negatives, that's FFUN. I came before the council a few weeks ago and gave a presentation on what our Public Service Corps does. I think you guys got a chance to see the challenges that we face. And so there needs to be more. So we're proposing to work with Stevie and his group. And the beauty of that is that his team does exactly that. They clean blight. He paid them a certain amount. And then after 6 months, his funding goes away and he can't keep them. So what we're proposing is to not only allow him to have a year-round program, but as his participants leave his program, they'll come straight to our Public Service Corps program to help us with our program. And then we're going to afford them those same resources that we give our manhood and wives and our reentry team. And so those are my 3 requests. I'll take any questions you have.
Council members? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Colleagues, I'm looking at, I'm included, employ, Memphis Ambassadors Program. I'm looking at everything that has been presented to us here, Manhood University, and I'm a bit troubled, if you would, from the standpoint that these problems existed before COVID. These problems are going to exist after COVID. And so when I look at what was ARPA eligible uses, I don't see how this is responding to the public health emergency or its negative economic impacts. I don't see how we're respond to workers performing essential work by providing premium pay to eligible workers. Perhaps we're using this as a provision for government services to address revenue loss, but these are problems before COVID. These are going to be problems after the 3 years that we're eligible to use these. And so I don't know how we reconciling this. How are these, are they that much more exaggerated because of COVID? Did our opportunity use increase?
But we still have the same number. But so what I'm saying though is that we still use, I go back to this thing, we're using temporary money to address permanent issues. And I don't know whether we're gonna have the will to continue to fund and address these same problems that existed before. And are we gonna have the will to address it and properly address it after?
Yeah, I listened to the mayor's earlier opening statement, and he says that we wish we had dollars to address these in our regular budget, and that we don't. And he also said that we should hopefully do a good enough job you're right, these problems have existed. We've got an opportunity now to at least address them that we wouldn't normally have in a regular budget season. And hopefully we make a good enough impact on this community with these programs that the administration behind us continues them. It's needed. And so again, the fact that we're asking for them now and we've not had funds for them, it's not mean that they're not needed. They're needed. And so we have an opportunity before us to use dollars to address a needed problem, and I think we should.
Look, and this is not to all of the programs, all of them. I support. I'd be the first one to support. I do, but
is that a yes vote already?
No. And out of the general fund, yes, we addressed it then. But I just want us, and this is not an administration conversation I'm having. This is a council. I told you so. We have to be willing to make tough and difficult decisions to address permanent needs. 7 tax decreases, 2 tax increases in the past 20 years to address permanent issues. We're on a wheel that's not going anywhere with temporary money, with the approach that we're taking with this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman, Chairman, may I respond?
Yeah, if you can briefly, and then we're going to go to other council members in the queue.
Yes, just briefly. Just wanted to assure council members that as these requests were brought to the mayor and the senior leadership team, we bumped them up against the interim final rule and all of the latest, especially the latest FAQs. And I just want to reiterate one thing that we've all talked about this is very limited, precious funding, and there is no argument about that. And how we decide how best to deploy these funds into our community, obviously, is a very important decision. And I certainly realize the gravity of what we are asking and what is on your plate. We certainly do that. But I just wanted to just kind of pull this in, that the interim rule permits a broad range of services to unemployed or underemployed workers and other individuals that suffered negative economic impacts from the pandemic. That can include public job programs, subsidized employment, combined education and on-the-job training programs, or training to accelerate rehiring or address negative economic or public health impacts experienced due to the worker's occupational level of training. Specifically in the ruling, they agree and acknowledge, the Treasury does, that the impacts have been widespread. Both the public health and economic impacts have fallen most severely on communities and populations disadvantaged before it began. And I'm reading directly from the rule. Low-income communities, people of color, and tribal communities have faced higher rates of infection, hospitalization as death, as well as higher rates of unemployment and the lack of basic necessities like food and housing. Pre-existing social vulnerabilities magnified the pandemic in these communities.
We're going beyond brief. I think we got the definition.
I'm just saying, we did not measure these lightly. We wanted to give you a broad range of the possibilities of what this funding could do to our community, and we certainly appreciate your questions, and thank you very much.
I really appreciate you providing that additional guidance on this, for my information and for broad information as well.
If I can add this to council, that we're increasing our tax base when we do this. We're getting people's jobs that aren't working now, and aren't paying taxes now. And so it allows us to increase our tax base, which won't be the responsibility of government. It's the responsibility of private business to hire them. So I think we're also increasing our tax base.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Nisha Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Moody. I had a few questions about the programs. It kind of blended together towards the end. I was trying to understand. But for the Opportunity Youth Initiative, that's the new one, what exactly are they doing? Because you said it's a 3-month program, but
it's a 30-day program.
It's a 30-day.
Yeah.
So what are they doing for 30 days that's going to prove effective to change their livelihoods from day 1 to day 30?
So we'll have a curriculum that they will come in each day, which will be financial literacy, job, resume, interviewing, preparedness, how to dress for it. It will be a curriculum that will prepare them for whatever career path they want to go down. Remember, they're going to tell us what career path they want to go down, and we're going to help them down that career path. But it will be a 30-day curriculum. We'll share that with you. We're still putting that curriculum together, but it will be a curriculum that's going to prepare them for whatever career path that they want to choose.
And what's the ages for this?
16 through 24.
So how is that different from the MAP program? Well, he just get on the elevator. The programs that he does.
His individuals are in school. This program for 16 to 24, they're not working or in school.
So I guess I'm missing, this may be a more program based, but how, if you're not in school or in an environment that you see the need for these skills tangibly in a priority, how does a 30-day program change that for you?
Well, the 30-day program just gets them on their career path. We're going to continue to follow them. And so nothing changes in 30 days. There's no, I'm realistic. We're not going to change them in 30, but we got to start somewhere, right? And so to just say they're out there and we let them continue to be out there, we got to start somewhere. So there's no expectation that 30 days is going to change them, but we're going to give them a start. We're going to encourage them to try to get their lives back together. So to think they're going to change in 30 days, that's not our expectation. I think it's our responsibility to provide an opportunity for them to be able to change at some point in their life.
Okay, because that's what I thought you was going to say. So how is that different from the people who are in the manhood and WOW?
Well, it's different. I would tell you the average age person for our manhood and WOWs is probably 30 and older.
What's the ages that you accept, though?
We accept all ages. We don't turn anyone away. So there very well could be some overlap, but I would tell you that the demand and the need for this, that it'll be less overlap than it is. But there's no age group for our manhood or WOWs. But the Opportunity Youth is specifically for 16 through 24.
Okay. I guess I'm still not understanding why it's separate from the youth services if it's more focused on youth. But if it's not, then it could be lapped in with we don't have to start a new program. It could be lapped in with the other ones. It could either go I'm just trying to see in my head, it can either go with Director Griffith or with the manhood and WOWs you already have, but why does it have to be something new?
Remember, Ike's program, they are in school. These Opportunity Youth, they're not in school or they're not working. So he doesn't take them if they're not in school. You got to be in school to go through Ike's program. So these are individuals that are not in school or not working. And I would tell you that the 16 through 24, and we know in that age group, there are probably some parenting, but the manhood and WOWs participants traditionally come to our program. Again, they're 30 and older. They've got background issues that they can't get a regular job, and they need assistance with driver's license, expungement, and so they're similar, but they're not. I mean, there are two programs that need to be separate because the needs are separate.
And you mentioned that there are other programs out there that are doing this, Van Hook's Job Corps, et cetera.
Those are our partners that we're going to direct these individuals to. Those are partners for us to help them, give them opportunities for where they want to go. And so they offer those services, but our individuals we're going to target know nothing about those services, right? And so we're going to bring them inside to us and expose them to those opportunities that are there. They're not going to go look for them on their own, and so we're going to try to help them there.
And I'm not sorry for all the questions, but just for I guess the confusion I'm still having, that kind of seems like it's a middleman thing. I don't see the full necessity of it. But it's not to talk down on it. I just don't understand why.
The only new program we're creating is opportunity youth.
That's what I'm talking about, the opportunity youth. It seems like a middleman program.
There's no program for them right now. There's nothing for opportunity youth right now. We offer nothing right now. Now, I hear what you're saying. Perhaps they could go try a Manhood and Wives program because they fit in that age group.
Or the organizations that you're directing them to.
But they are those organizations that have been there and provide those services, and they've not gone there. These individuals need some guidance and direction. They need specific guidance and direction that we're going to try to give to them.
I guess if we can talk about this more another time on how that's actually looking at being successful. How that's looking at being successful. And then my last question is about the blight remediation. This money requested isn't particularly for blight. It's to what is it? Is it to hire more people? Is it to use on the blight? What is?
Yes, they're going to be hiring individuals to address blight.
With the FFUN.
Yes, that's what they do now.
Okay. Yes. And are these same people going to be employed year after year? Is there any transition into a better position
I spoke on that. They're going to transition from fund to a public service corps with us, and then from public service corps, what we do now is help them get full-time job. Our public service corps isn't permanent. It's kind of a temporary stop where we can help them get on their feet and get them full-time jobs. So the transition is from fund, public service corps to us helping move them on to a permanent position.
And it takes them a year?
It just depends. Some longer, some may not take as long, but we'll stick with them until we get them covered.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Johnson.
Thank you for this opportunity. The question is back to Councilwoman Easter Thomas. Where will these 16 to 24 individuals come from? How are you going to identify them? So we might make a difference.
The 3 partnerships I gave with juvenile court, we know, again, if they're in juvenile court, they've got trouble. So we work with juvenile court, Shelby County Schools, and their truancy officers, because if they're not in school, Shelby County Schools knows that. And then Agape, and we chose Agape because they've got a wraparound family service where they deal with the parent, the child, in job, and so those 3. Those are just 3. We know there are many more opportunities, but those would be our 3 immediate pipelines.
Okay, I understand that because I think it's a concept that we always say our children will listen to someone else before they listen to you. Right. So if you have another agency or some type of counselor that can work with them before it's too late, grab them, this would be that gap in between, hopefully. My only other comment was, we talked about these findings and how they're going to be used, but I believe almost every issue that we have addressed existed before this funding came about. It's just the mere fact that, like Ms. Ford has said, that the epidemic has just brought it to light and made it come up to the top. We have these same issues over and over, and my only other question is, if this epidemic gets worse, where will the funding come from to help pay for vaccine? Where will it come from for more hospitalization? Where is the funds going to come from to try to get medicine? Where will we be if all the funds are gone? I'm just curious what happens.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for your comments, and that's a great question. One of the things that kind of enables us to look at different uses of the ARPA money is the fact that we do have some other funding. We currently have one grant, I think that's for $15 million that is specifically just for vaccination, keeping that going and keeping that out there. Council approved this for us. We do share that with some of the other municipalities, but the state granted that money to us to kind of oversee. So we do have that opportunity. We still do have opportunity on FEMA for vaccinations. That's still very highly related on FEMA, and they are still currently for vaccination incentives, reimbursing at 100% instead of 75%. So we do have some other options. Now the FEMA is reimbursable, so we have to, we have to hit it first and then ask for the reimbursement. So we're trying in all of these where we are looking at other opportunities and other funding to make sure that we are making the maximum use of the funding under other grants to enable us to use some of this money for this. But you are also very correct in that what if this continues to build instead of slow down like we thought it was doing a month and a half ago?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Chair. All really, really, really good questions. And I hear Councilman Jones, other than I don't like getting beat on, disagree a little bit fundamentally, but, I will say at least he's presented some options of that money to be spent, because usually it's like, hey, what do you want? If not this, then what? So I can't beat on him for that. But I hear what he's saying. All of these programs as presented sound really good. And I agree that these are problems that were exacerbated and brought a light on. I also understand what Councilman Jones is saying is like in 3 years, and I hear the mayor saying, I would find the money, and like, that's great when you're out the door. But I got it. But I'm with Councilwoman Easter Thomas that I'm not fully sure that I understand the flow of funds and how it partners. We kind of talked about this Boys and Girls Club. Like, what is the total cost and what is your sources and uses of funds? To that point, like, I still don't really understand on the opportunity use, like, okay, it's a 30-day program for 80 students per year, $420K a year. So your total program cost for 30 days is $5,250, and $1,000 of that is going to pay each attendee per month. Like, so is that per month? So is it? Right, I'm just reading, it says per month. That's what I'm trying to understand. Some of it's confusing for me. So for 1 month, it's 52, call it $5,250, $1,000 of which goes directly to the individual. So the overhead for the training in the classroom for a month is $4,200. Okay.
All of that money is going to the
Okay, so you're paying them $5,250.
Yeah, they get $250 with each individual person that comes to opportunity use. They'll get $250 a week or $500. That money goes. That's not
No. That's what I just said. They get $1,000 a month. The remaining of that is the $4,200.
They get all of it. It's not just $1,000.
Someone explain what is happening here. So is the program 30 days? Okay.
It says a 3-month program in the presentation.
I am so confused. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to have to do this on Tuesday because it's getting late and there's other things and everyone wants to go home. You guys got to come back Tuesday and show me where the money's going. Because at this point, I'm tired and I'm getting a little cranky. But I don't understand. And furthermore to that, on some of these other programs like MHU and WOW's already stood up and I understand what they do. What I'm trying to really understand is, are we supplementing more of the job, public service corps? It's part of it. It looks like the entry level. We're granting money to fund, F-fund or whatever, freedoms from unnecessary negatives, in order to help them bridge the gap for 6 months until they can feed them into our pipeline. I understand part of that. I don't really understand some of the other pieces of it. And honestly, I can get with you offline. We're getting late. But on the Opportunity Youth Program, I don't understand. And it's starting to frustrate me. Yeah. Because again, I don't have a problem. Like, again, Opportunity Youth, great. This council's spoken on it multiple times. And I understand the administration's presenting us one potential solution to that problem. But the question is there a better way to skin that cat, for lack of a better word? I don't know, but I still don't fully understand. But again, it's a problem that we probably should support. I just don't know the answer. And again, it's getting late. So I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Question I have, back to Manhood University. And it says 80 additional participants for a total of 180. How many have we had enter Manhood University? What's the graduation rate? And then also, what is the recidivism rate of those that enter the program? Not that graduate, but that enter the program.
I don't have that written. I can give you that. I mean, we've had over 700 individuals to graduate our program. And it's an ongoing program. So the recidivism, I don't know that we can pinpoint that percentage.
Okay, I didn't know if that was something we try, because I mean, recidivism is obviously, it's a big statistic in the criminal justice system and talking about reentry.
I think you agree that the chances are we'll provide them with the service that less likely to go back.
I agree. If they're seeking out our service, they're less likely to go back because they've made that choice as well.
Yeah,
So
that's a good KPI.
but that, yeah, when we start talking about statistics numbers, that would be something I'd be interested to be able to follow and that we could document and show the difference between the Manhood University versus other programs versus the general population. Any other comments or questions from council members? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. We'll go on to our last presentation, which is HCD initiatives. And again, we'll go through all these and then we'll have questions at the end. I appreciate everybody's patience. Hold on. We got one more to go, and then we'll get on out of here. Ms. Cash, the floor is yours.
Good evening, I believe. Ashley Cash, HCD Director. I'm gonna take this off because I might not be able to speak as loudly. We have 3 requests. The total is $28 million, I believe, that we're requesting. And I'm going to go through all 3 of those. So the first one is HCD Mortgage Assistance. This is a program, so we are trying to do 2 things. One, address the need of mortgage assistance for individuals who have found themselves unemployed or employed at a lower rate due to COVID. We did have a partnership with United, or I should say we do have a partnership with the United Housing. We funded them about $1 million through CDBG CARES Act funding. At the time, that was for rental and mortgage assistance. But once we got the additional funds, the millions for rental assistance, they have transitioned to just providing mortgage assistance. And so just sharing that information. That funding was restricted, so it could be about up to 6 months, and the max was, I think, $6,500 per house. We found that that's just not enough to make people whole. People have been in this pandemic for 18 months. Mortgages are expensive, and so what we're trying to do is meet that need, leverage that funding, but also take advantage of some of the flexibility. In this case, there would be about 20% admin, about $200,000, which is standard with what we're already doing and standard across a couple of our other programs. So that is mortgage assistance. And just make sure I didn't miss anything. The next one is home repair. There are a couple of other cities. Here we're trying to be a little bit creative, meeting an existing need that we know is out there, but a need that a lot of individuals who were also affected by COVID have had to put their repairs on the back burner. A few other cities have used different funding, CARES funding for home repair, and so we want to take that avenue with the ARPA fund. So we're requesting $1.1 million for home repair. I did have a list of repairs. I don't have it with me, but it's the things that y'all can think of. So roof, HVAC, if you've got window issues, just kind of typical things you would think about with the home repair program. We will be trying to address health and safety hazards, promote neighborhood stability. I think there we would be looking at between $15,000 to $25,000 per house. Of course, we don't want to spend that $25,000, but that's kind of our range in terms of the need that's out there, and that would probably address a drop in the bucket, 40 to 50 homes. So a drop in the bucket in terms of the need. What we anticipate doing is matching or leveraging funding with LISC. So we're in the process of establishing a new home repair program that would be administered by LISC. We have funded them from outside funding with $1 million. They have brought in another $1 million, I think, from the state. And so this would boost that up again to $1.1 million. And that would be grants and loans, but that's how these funds would be deployed. And then if we go to the last one, I believe. Oh, Ashley, can I get the next slide? Or who's working the slide? I don't know. Anywho, so the next one is a broadband request. So we are requesting, this is a large number. It is for physical infrastructure, $25 million for broadband. Obviously, with COVID, a lot of people were working from home. A lot of people are still working remotely. Many students have gone back to school, but some are still doing remote learning and, of course, using their tablets and doing homework, et cetera, at home. We found that broadband access, high-speed internet access is a huge need in the city of Memphis. We are in the process of, we have done a smart city plan. We are wrapping up our actual broadband plan that should be out at the end of September, which really drills down and says we generally know the areas that are having the blackout is not the appropriate word, but that have lesser access. And so that drills down. That lets us know what it will look like from an implementation standpoint to address the broadband issue, how we might go about it, what we may want to do. And our preliminary numbers is that it's going to take about $36 million to get that infrastructure to all the places that have that lower cost. And I want to look at you too, Councilman, but then when I turn my head, I kind of go off of the microphone. So. I'll by yourself. So that $36 million is our target. We do have $7.5 million allocated in the Accelerator Memphis Fund for broadband. This $25 million would make that amount whole. Just to let you know, the FCC, so in Memphis, less than 40% of households have broadband at 10 megabytes per second download speed. The standard for high-speed internet from the Federal Communication Commission is between 12 and 25. Really, I say 25, but there's a little bit of information out there that say if you have the 12, you technically have high-speed internet, and that is download speed. So that's a large population of our community that's kind of sitting, waiting on those little things to load while they wait to do their homework, apply for jobs, et cetera. And so we feel like this is a huge investment. It's a one-time investment. Of course, there are always maintenance costs and figuring that out, but it's a huge but worthwhile investment to connect our city in the same way years ago that the city was connected through roads and electricity. This is a connection and an infrastructure piece that really can have you working right here in the city or working across the country or the world. So we really feel like that is important for those neighborhoods, but also for small businesses. And I believe those are my three requests, and I'm happy to take any questions.
We've got a healthy queue already. Councilwoman Easter Thomas.
Thank you, Director. Just a few questions. For the mortgage assistance, how much is expected to go per household? And then are there income limits on this as there were with the previous program? And I ask because it's been city employees that have contacted me about them not being able to get money from CSA because of the income limits, but they work at our parks and community centers and then hours have been decreased. So what's their options with this?
So really great questions. I have not looked at the specific guidance for the ARPA funds, and I'm not sure if it mirrors the Treasury funds. So we know with our Treasury funds, we can only do 80% or less area median income. It is, it's affected by your family size. So it's not a standard number. I think that could be an opportunity here if we, and we can do that between now and Tuesday, at least see now what the rules say about income limits for particular programs and just see if that's something that we could loosen up. And you asked the number, the amount that you were expecting to give. So once again, our discretion. So right now we were doing up to $6,500. What we probably would do is look at what that average has been, and I don't have that number in front of me, but what that average has been for all households that we funded at a mortgage replacement so far, and then probably modify that amount.
Okay. And then I'm sure my other colleagues will ask about this too, but for the home repair, Is there a zip code priority? And how will the people be selected? I know you said looking between 15 to 25K per home, which averages about 40 or 50 people. So
there's not a zip code priority right now, and that's something that
there be?
I was going to say that's something that we can consider and figure out how. I think our challenge, and y'all may have some of this information, would be what is our threshold? You know, are we just going about, I think it's just, you know, I think this area has more home repair, or we have some, you know, valid research to back up that we're working in these couple of areas first. It could be a financial basis, so areas that meet these income requirements initially get served first, that sort of thing. What we have done in our, with our rental assistance program is actually, so everybody applies. Usually people who apply first are ones with more means. They've got their documents together, their internet, so, you know, they've got everything. And so if you apply last, you're at the bottom of the list. So what we've actually done with some of our past application cycles is done a random lottery. So everybody applies, but everybody has an equal chance of being selected. That's an option. We can certainly look at the zip code priority. We can look at where existing rental, because we know all the, we know all the home repair programs in the city. It's not many. And we can look and see where they have already served, like what, you know, what percentage of homes have they already served, and make a determination. We can go somewhere else, or we can say, let's try to finish out the neighborhood, that sort of thing. So I think there is some flexibility there. Once again, we check the rules to make sure we're doing things in a legitimate fashion. But I do think we have some options there to be strategic, because it's not a lot of money. It's not going to go very far, but so we can be strategic about where we put those funds.
Okay. I would like to see more funds towards this program, and also some type of, I mean, lottery sounds good, but then it doesn't. Right. So some type of prioritized strategy or to select, because we want to make sure we're getting it to the ones that need it. Whether that be MSUW to see whose water or whose air bill is astronomical, or who's in the zone for possible lead pipes or whatever, who's close to the depot in South Memphis, or who's close to the brownfields in North Memphis. Right. Looking to see if it's a way to strategically look at prioritizing it based on the actual health of our environment. It's just we don't have that much. And then seeing if it's anything we can put more towards it for the home repair, especially. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Briefly, again, we've got a long queue.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to tell you that there are areas in the interim final rule that do point you to qualified census tracts, and so we can match those up to see. So I just wanted to fit in there. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Carlisle, go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically carte blanche for the majority of the city. Honestly, you know, you could just throw money at certain census tracts and it kind of qualifies and you read through it. But I want to back up to the mortgage assistance program. So this is, I'll say this, I'm not trying to be rude or disparaging of anybody from the city that's come forth. Like every outside vendor, I had a very clear understanding of their program and how it was going to work and why I was getting money. For every city entity that's come forward, it's like a 4-bullet program, high level. I kind of already knew that before you walked in here thing, and I haven't learned anything more. So I'm a little frustrated by that at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, and I could have been home. So I just want to send that back. I was here to learn how the program works, and you don't really have any answers for me. And so it's hard to I'm with Michael and or Councilman H. Thomas, I think these are good programs, but it makes me uncomfortable again, just being here's a bucket of money, and I don't really understand how you're going to deploy it. So, for me, one of the things I would have asked, and I think she's right, because I brought that up last time about, hey, why the 80% AMI? For rental assistance, I get it. I don't know how many 80% AMIs own their own home. I know they're in there. But so the question is then, to her point, we've got basically underemployed people now because hours have been cut and they wouldn't have normally fallen in that bucket. So what is the data set from First Horizon or Orion or Financial Federal or any lending institution that has access to this data to understand what the average outstanding household mortgage payment probably is, what their fee rate or their run rate is. Like, we have partners in the city that could get us this data. And then we could start to shape a narrative of, to your point to Councilwoman Easter Thomas' point, like 1.1 million at 15K a home is like 40 houses.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'll bet you've got 10,000 people that apply. So, you can't drive around. I mean, so I'm with her. I mean, we've got to find, and then there's no perfect program, and we can't money with it, but there's somewhere in there, there's got to be a better understanding for me on what's driving that, like, what is driving the program? Joe Public, how will I know? And that's, I think, what the council is really asking is, like, tell me how this is going to work. If I were applying for this, like, how this is going to work, and do I qualify? Because yeah, on the mortgage thing, the outstanding balance of $6,500, does that just help them get past the next month, but doesn't cover the mortgage? Does that cover mortgage and fees? Does that, and I know it's different in every case. I mean, I get that, but I'm going to assume most people that would qualify for this, their average mortgage payment is probably like maybe a couple $100. Anybody who's just principal and interest payment is starting to hit towards $600 to $1,000 a month, probably maybe doesn't need that help. So again, you're just the last person that's getting late. I'm just a little frustrated with the city entity showing up kind of a little empty-handed today. I know thought has gone on with the administration, but the level of like communicating, like we're hopping, you guys are mid thought all the way to the end, and we're hopping in trying to play catch up, but like there's nothing really here. On a separate note, and because I know others have got to go, and I know that I want to hear what Councilman Ford has to say about the home repair. I would like to understand better how the rental landlord current HCD works, because that's a separate discussion, but I'd like to understand, because I've been asked several questions from not institutional landlords, but people that have been playing under the eviction moratorium, and they are looking for relief, and PPP didn't cover them. We're talking about 3 to 5 home, I took my pension and rolled it into a few rental properties. And I need to get those responses to them. But this is more towards you. And I know you and Chief are a team, and he's not here today, but I desperately want to give money immediately to this, but there's no way I could even vote on any of this, because as far as the information I've received, it's very half-baked. And for me, that's a problem. Other than broadband, which, again, I know we've talked about it, and I know it's a very complex issue because there's all sorts of money sources coming into it, and players, including those that actually lay, and Jones talked about this, who actually literally put in the broadband. So I'm going to shut up because I know other people want to go, but we've got to fix this by Tuesday. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first response is going to be HCD, mortgage assistance 1.1. We need more. We need more. Taking out 200,000, that leaves 900,000. If at 6,500, that's 138, but that's divided by 3 years. That's spread out over 3 years. So colleagues, that's only 45 homes. So we are throwing a pebble into the Pacific Ocean with this. So the same thing with the home repair, 900,000. We subtracting 200,000 for administrative costs from 1.1, 900,000. Even at 15,000, that's 60 over 3 years, meaning that's 20 per year. So we need to me 5 times that in each one. I go back to, I don't see us having provisions under normal circumstances from the general fund and generating money for that to do things that really help people on the ground, and we can spread it out and really impact and help people's lives. This is our one chance, and hopefully I won't be on the council if there's ever an environment where this is necessitated again to do that. And then the broadband piece, I know that we have $7.5 million for Accelerate Memphis, but with I know there's a long way to go with the infrastructure plan that was just approved yesterday. There's a certain provision of that. We are allowed to do it clearly. Are we premature to do so? Still knowing, notwithstanding what's going to take place in Washington, it's going before the House. It might be a year before it gets done. But if anything, I would say the $1 trillion that the Senate passed is the floor. The House is up here. So there's some reconciliation between there. Can we not, and I'm a bit hesitant for us to commit to $25 million for the broadband, knowing that there's additional broadband money specifically for broadband that's coming down the pike. And if we can allocate a portion of, not saying the whole kit and caboodle of this, but if we can take that broadband and put it with mortgage assistance and home repairs, I think that'll go a long way, especially now, if the Senate was still going through, we know that still House has to do their thing. If this wasn't a certain bit of certainty down the road, there's no way I would propose that, because I've been broadband all the way. But in light of what took place just last night, it provides us some different priorities than what they were last week when it was first presented to us.
Thanks, Councilman, and I completely understand where you're coming from. I think we can talk with the administration and figure out what that might look like, what funds might come from, the other sources, and where we might be able to be flexible in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you do see that we did have this in the second year out, because we were actually waiting to see what would happen and what would transpire with that it could be something that this $25 million, should we be able to move through with the infrastructure funding, this $25 million then would be freed up for other funding purposes. And for each of you and all council members online, I apologize on behalf of the city. We will make sure I've listened to what you said, and we will make sure that we are more forthcoming and that there's additional information for all of those presentations that you've seen today from our city partners. And we'll make sure that we come back, and when we have our presentations on Tuesday, you might want to block some more time.
That's up to some of the other chairs and how full their agenda is going to be as well. All right, Councilman Ford.
I'm gonna be very brief. This is what y'all kind of need to do. Thank you, Councilman Jones. Thank you, Councilwoman Bishop Thomas. Mortgage assistance. You will not need mortgage assistance if you don't do some home repair. Understood? I think you got 1.1 million. We about $3.9 million short. Broadband don't mean anything to me right now when it comes to the people. You won't need broadband if you don't have people. Okay? And like I said, home repair and mortgage assistance, they kind of intertwine. Because like I said, you don't have to pay no mortgage if the house falling down. Okay? Roof repair. You mentioned an amount that I mentioned last Tuesday between $15,000 and $20,000. Now, this should first of all be for the elderly, which would take certain areas. Okay? 38106, North Memphis, what's the zip code there? And you're 07, all like that, which is very, very important. But I need y'all to go back to the drawing board. Hey, this home repair needs to be brought back up 3.9 million. Councilman Jones, when it comes down to mortgage assistance, 1.1, what do you think? It needs to be 5 million also, so take that away from broadband, okay? Because we'll deal with that later on. Yeah, and that will give all the assistance. I think that would help all our different areas.
the broadband, if I'm reading this correctly, broadband is year 2, right? Okay, so we still got to go back. Yeah, we got to go back to the table because.
Yeah, with them.
Right, but no, what I'm saying is that the allocation for broadband is a year out. So I'm contending that somehow, someplace else, we shuffle chairs around again to put more rental assistance and home repairs in year 1.
Right.
Broadband may not be it.
Now.
But no, broadband may not be it right now because that's year 2 money.
There you go. Yes, we agree. So we need 5 and 5. Yeah, come back to it. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilwoman Robinson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And council members, you had a perfect conversation this evening because I have taken quite a bit of time looking at all the pages that we have here and how we divide the money. And I have already prepared a resolution talking about everything you talked about today. I'm saying that we ought to do 3 big buckets of money where we make a big impact on the citizens of Memphis in every district. I heard Councilwoman Easter Thomas asked, how do we make sure everybody get a piece of the pie? Just like we do our SkyCard cameras. Let's take $30 million and slam dunk all 7 districts and fix windows, installation, doors, all the weatherization that they need. Make sure that we have sidewalks that need repair for seniors, roofs for seniors. Make it one big package and let's make a difference. And I think the citizens of Memphis would appreciate it because we've gotten rid of blight, we reduced the energy burden, and we have now safe sidewalks that are not broken up and torn up, where even when senior citizens have people come by to help them with a little exercise, they can't even walk in front of their own homes. Let's put $30 million there. Let's do something for our community that's substantial. We've won the lottery. Let's do something big. And I got 2 other big buckets as well. But the one that we're talking about today, I was going to eliminate the broadband and get that money out of the next bill. Just like you just said, let's do this. Let's do it big. Let's make sure that we cover our citizens. And I had already calculated that we could do 2,000 households at $7,500. That's an average of what we normally do through the Share the Pennies program. And that would take care of those weatherization issues in homes. But 2,000 homes, oh man, we make a big difference in our community. And for the senior citizens, I made it a little higher. Let's do 1,000 of their households at $15,000 so that they can get a new roof and it's not leaking anymore on them. Council members, think about it. I'll see you on Tuesday. I'm really excited about what I've heard today. I appreciate the members of our administrative team providing us with such great opportunities. But I see that we need to look at this in bigger buckets, just like we got a big bucket. Let's look at it in bigger buckets and make a big difference in our city, Memphis, in all 7 districts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Robinson. Councilman Logan?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, city officials, for the presentation. It has been a very long day. I feel like all my colleagues, I agree with you all. This has been pretty rushed, and everyone has had a lot of questions today about what we've been presented, and I haven't heard one council member be totally comfortable with what they've heard. Everyone has questions, and we don't really know what is being asked of us other than a bottom line. So my question is, are we prepared to vote on this on Tuesday? Because I know, as I've heard other colleagues say, they have presentations and thoughts about some of the money as well and have amendments as well, and I do too. So, we would have to afford an opportunity for all of the council members who may have amendments to come forth, in addition to the city reworking the numbers that they've sent. So do we need another special meeting on the ARPA funds, or are we going to do all of this on Tuesday? because we really don't want to, for the sake of the citizens who we represent, for the sake of the city and us moving forward from this opportunity with these dollars, which we don't have all the time. We don't know if we will get this opportunity again or have it again. I did hear someone, I think Councilwoman Cheyenne Johnson mentioned, what are we going to do in the future if we run into some other problems? But it's like we're just running to hurry and spend this money and have not thought it through and just spending it without a really concrete, thorough plan, and that will be sustainable and impactful. Councilwoman Robinson just, brought forth an idea of tackling a couple of issues in a major way. That's a thought. So there are a lot of things on the table, and I think we are actually rushing. We're not really giving it due diligence. And as a council member elected by the people, I don't want to be in that position to say we did not think it through. So, I move that we take some time to have another session where we can present all of the well thought out plans with all of the details before we vote.
Councilman Logan, this was going to be part of my closing remarks of where I thought we should go, but go ahead and get into it. Look, there is no resolution on the floor in front of us. There are no votes that are being asked of council members yet. So I would agree that no council member, unless it's the will of the body to force it, to move towards a vote, that anybody should be in a position to vote if the majority is not ready. So I think just in terms of scheduling and where we are now, let's go ahead and we will try to carve out as much time on Council Tuesday. I think it's going to be a blank, not a blank, but a very open ARPA allocation resolution. It is going to be presented by the administration with a number of line items. Any council member is welcome to make a motion. I'm going to take off this mask for a second. Any council member is welcome to make a motion to amend any of those line items, to add in new line items, and then we will deliberate and vote on those motions. Somebody can do a substitute resolution if the changes are so substantial that it would be easier just to restart with a blank piece of paper. And I think all that is fair to be or should be discussed in Tuesday. And if the conversation and the debate doesn't get us all the way to the ends where we think there's a majority ready to move forward, then we will schedule some more time to talk. And but I don't want anybody to feel like they're being ambushed or they're not ready. So for the questions that have come up, I think for the administration in these last few hours, give them time to respond to council members. Council members, go ahead and reach out to the administration or be prepared with the amendments that you think you'd be interested in seeing or going forward with. And we can bring it to the table on Tuesday. And I don't think there's going to be any rush from people to do a same night minutes push or anything like that. I think we're going to have to, or it may be that there are some things that the council, looks at this and says, you know what, let's get that money out right now. We still got debates about this other 50 million over here, but let's get this money out right now. This we can agree on. And so it may be funding resolutions that goes forward in pieces. Again, it's going to be up to the will of the body, but we'll, I don't think any further meetings between now and Tuesday. We'll start on Tuesday and try to carve out as much time as possible and keep it on track. Logan's back in the queue. I heard Councilman Ford first and then Jones.
Who did you recognize, Chair?
Councilman Ford first.
I will be very brief.
Perfect.
All council members, please, whatever you got to choose, I don't want to be here all day. That's my anniversary, 43 years. Only thing I consider her is okay. Y'all know how it is. All men know.
We'll keep the debate in committee.
Is that okay? Don't say nothing else, because it ain't gonna work. Okay? Thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think that I'm just of the opinion that even a resolution coming from the administration is premature at this point, because what we were presented with proposals, there have been thoughts and sentiments that have been expressed here. I think that Tuesday is a time for us to reconcile that
and perhaps at another time, come back with what we think is almost a compromise between what the wishes of the council and what the recommendations of the administration would be. So that's sort of what I would want us to see sort of Tuesday versus, okay, well, the administration is still coming with almost a blanket because, and to your point, there could be some things that we can get out the door, but
no, and it was just the administration requested that they were going to have a resolution on the agenda for this coming Tuesday, and they may decide to withdraw and follow exactly that guidance, and have more conversations with the council members.
And it could be where, if anything, the council members make some amendments Tuesday. And so instead of having things, their presentation, ours, maybe have them both as a listening session, if you would, and then come back in 2 weeks to say, okay, well, we've heard the council, this we've heard, and then the administration says these are ours, and this is sort of a middle ground between them.
And whether council members agree with what's been proposed or not, it has certainly been a good starting point for conversation. I mean, this has really gotten it kind of flowing, and they still have some more presentations scheduled for Tuesday, proposals of how they'd like to spend the money. We split it up about half and half. So Councilman Logan, back to you.
So, point of clarity, are you saying that on Tuesday we should be prepared to vote? Because my sentiment, that's exactly what I was saying, what my colleagues, Councilman Jones said. I also was stating that at this point, we have not been presented a full program in a number of the presentations. They were high-level looks at what they would like to see, but most of the council members commented that they would like a very descriptive program with all the details and the ongoing operational costs and resources. And so that's not going to be, that'll be a time on Tuesday that they're presenting again. This will be the third presentation, as well as the council members presenting. So, I like my colleagues, don't want to be there all day. So are we going to vote on Tuesday, or will we listen on Tuesday and vote later?
Councilwoman, I hesitate to predict with any certainty what the majority will of the body will be, because the majority will of the body could push for a vote if they felt ready. But from what I hear today, I would not bet that we will be voting on Tuesday on a fully formed resolution to allocate ARPA funds. There may be some votes on Tuesday for certain parts of proposals or items, line items that are ready to go and to get that money out and working into the community. But I very highly doubt at this point that there will be a full allocation of ARPA funds being voted on Tuesday. I just don't think we'll be able to get to that consensus. Nor am I trying to push for that. So I would say Tuesday, if you've got ideas, if you've got questions, bring them all to committee. If someone wants to introduce a resolution, they're certainly welcome to. We'll have a motion, a second, and then deliberation and votes on that. If somebody is not comfortable with that resolution right away, whether it's proposed by another council member or the administration, there can be a motion to hold. There can be a motion to amend. We will open up the floor for those resolutions, those amendments, and that discussion. And the majority will of the body will dictate where we go. But it sounds like there's more questions than consensus and answers at the moment. So, and then from Tuesday, we'll have a clearer picture and schedule out some more time if necessary.
Thank you, Chair. I yield back.
Okay. Thank you. As Councilman Smiley said, all hearts and minds are clear. I thank everybody for their patience in coming together. It was a few years ago, I was watching a county commission meeting before, this is before the recent group is there, and there was this talk about why they weren't having any budget hearings or any budget committee meetings. And so we don't have time for that. And I appreciate everybody coming and making the time and working on this. It's important. It's described as a lottery. It is certainly a unique situation with this ARPA funding, and we're